Chapter 868. In a lounge of the meeting hall of the Bloodwing Fortress, there was a huge, oval-shaped wooden table. There was an empty space in the middle of the table, forming a circular table. Beside the table were rows of wooden chairs that could seat about 24 or 25 people. If they squeezed together, they could seat up to 30 people. It looked like a place to receive important guests or hold a military meeting. A row of blue sofas was temporarily placed in the corner of the room. The style of the sofa was different from the table in the middle, and it could seat about 20 people. At this time, Yin Nuoxing and the others were crowded in the room, which made the originally large room a lot smaller. Ivan and the others went to deal with the aftermath of the battle. Yin Nuoxing asked them to deal with it. After all, they were not in a hurry. Not long after they fell from the sky, they woke up from their injuries, but they were still a little dizzy. At this time, a large group of people were paralyzed on the sofas or chairs. They all said that they needed to take a nap to calm down. What happened today was too exciting, and it could be said that it was the most exciting thing in their lives. "Girl, wake up!" Yin Nuoxing tried to wake Ming up, but the latter did not move after falling from the sky. Yin Nuoxing put her on the sofa and let her head rest on his shoulder. If he did not feel that she was still breathing and that there was no such thing as a corpse after death, he would have cut off 2 pieces of the celestial tree branch to try to bring her back to life. Sister Ming, Sister Ming. Little Purple Soul was also jumping up and down on Hui Ming's body, trying to get her attention. However, Hui Ming's beautiful eyes were tightly shut, and her lips were pursed as if she was asleep. What happened? Don't tell me you used your sister as a meat cushion and knocked her unconscious? Chu Yingxian frowned and poked Ming's face with her jade-like hand. The latter's quiet and peaceful sleeping face was very strange to her. The group of people were all intact, and she was the only one who was unconscious. No one could figure out what happened. Zero stood in front of Ming, and there was a golden vortex about a foot in the palm of his hand. He closed his eyes slightly and only opened them after a while. He frowned and scratched his head. "It's so strange, what's wrong?" Yin Nuoxing put his arm around Ming's shoulder and let her lean into his arms. Her heart skipped a beat when she heard Zero's words. She looked up at Zero with a questioning look. "It's so strange." Zero shook his long blonde hair in distress and said, "Her spiritual power is normal. Her soul is normal. There's no problem with her life form. There's no problem with the flow of divine power in her body. But why?" Zero grumbled in distress. He reluctantly reached out his hand and used the power of time to check on Ming's condition. "It's not like I've never seen an angel before." Although Ming turned from a human into an angel and fused with the soul of an angel, which is a higher level of life form, her soul was directly upgraded. There's no problem until now. She turned into an angel in perfect condition. It's a good result under the cauldron of souls. She's not missing anything, so why can't she wake up? Yin Nuoxing also frowned slightly and turned to look at Ming's quiet little face. After thinking for a while, she reached out her finger and gently touched Ming's forehead. A strand of celestial power flashed and went into her soul. "Wake up. You're here. Don't be trapped by the consciousness." Some mysterious power flashed and disappeared. Everyone in the room looked up blankly. The ripple spread out and shrouded the entire room. Everyone felt that their souls were suddenly pulled to a faraway place. In an instant, everyone saw something very far away. Black fog condensed into clusters as black as ink and surged like a tide on the horizon. There was a rolling black fog in the sky like a huge tornado, and black lightning ran through the sky. In front of them, a black behemoth hundreds of feet in size roared at the sky. The sound of chains rattling could be heard from its abdomen. Turning around, the figure of a thin young man was bound by black chains in the belly of the black behemoth. His eyes were tightly shut, as if he had fainted. This scene was faintly discernible, causing the dazed crowd to suddenly wake up. They all sat up straight. Just as they were looking at the dark place with their eyes wide open and the countless squirming black tides, the huge eyeless face suddenly turned around. Bang! An extremely dense black fog suddenly erupted from between Ming's eyebrows, causing Yin Nuoxing and Zero's expressions to change. The two of them jumped up almost at the same time and slapped Chu Yingjian, Yao Hua, and the others who were sitting beside them. Their hands, which contained celestial power and time power, blasted out and collided with the black fog. The black fog was extremely weak. It had inexplicably emerged from between Ming's eyebrows, and the two of them tore it apart with a single palm strike. Not even dregs were left behind. However, such a big commotion immediately caused everyone to enter battle mode. Yu Er's demonic aura had already surged out. Don't be impatient. Don't be impatient. Yin Nuoxing waved her hand, indicating for everyone to calm down and not be impatient. At this time, Ming's eyebrows had already returned to normal. The latter's pretty face was fair and lustrous, and was not affected by the black fog. After carefully observing for a while with the celestial power, Yin Nuoxing was still a little worried. With a thought, 5 rings appeared behind her and slowly rotated behind her. Yin Nuoxing gently made 2 hand seals and gathered the power of the natural order and the origin power of the divine body on her right index finger. Her slender finger instantly became as beautiful as a colorful jade. Biting his index finger, a drop of rainbow-colored blood condensed at the tip of his finger. Taking a deep breath, Yin Nuoxing quickly pointed at the center of Ming's eyebrows. With a horizontal stroke and a vertical stroke, he quickly drew a mark. With just a few strokes, everyone could feel a strange aura circulating in the surroundings. They could not help but turn their gazes. Coincidentally, they saw Yin Nuoxing draw the longest horizontal stroke on the mark, piercing through it. After which, he opened his mouth slightly and an ethereal voice quietly sounded. In my name, your life is under my control from now on. Without this God's order, no one can remove you from the world of the living. The ethereal voice seemed to come from a faraway place. It was faint and unexplainable. Everyone clearly saw that Ming was saying this sentence less than 3 meters away from them. However, in their hearts, they felt that this voice came from a very faraway place. It was like the voice of heaven or the voice of a god. When the voice fell, everyone felt a strange power enveloping Ming's body. It was as if some natural order had been changed. Oh, a god's life oath. You're really willing to part with it. Zero looked at Yin Nuoxing strangely and smiled. There was a hint of surprise in his voice. What is this? What is a god's life oath? When everyone saw that there was another situation to be explained, they did not care about the faint dizziness in their minds. They immediately jumped up and gathered around the two of them. They looked very curious. The gods established declaration by modifying all the natural order of the world corresponding to her will take effect unconditionally. It locked her life in the state of living. In this state, other than the person who made the declaration, no one can kill her. Well, the special case is, unless it's someone with a higher divinity than the two of us in this state, such as someone above the god level, they can still affect her. However, in this special case, the god who made the declaration will jump out to block the attack. To put it bluntly, as long as the idiot number 2 doesn't die, Ming won't die either. Zero shrugged. And in this case, no matter what threatens Ming's life, everything in the world will jump out to block the attack. Even if the probability of it happening is 0, it will still happen. This is the protection of the natural order, and I am the last layer of protection. Only the god can affect me. Yin Nuoxing said softly. Then, she frowned and looked up at the sky. You all saw that image, right? I felt a very terrifying destructive power there. The girl's consciousness seems to be trapped in, no, it seems to be drifting there and lost. I don't think she will be able to come back in a short time. I'm worried that something might happen to her. I feel a sense of danger. And I might have to go all out in this world once. There's a very powerful enemy. Yin Nuoxing looked at Zero solemnly. Her voice was very serious, causing the atmosphere to become slightly heavy. The latter nodded. Both of them thought of the same thing. At this moment, their expressions were very serious. Is it the person we saw in the image? Bing Er asked. Yin Nuoxing pondered for a moment. Then, she put Ming's body into her spiritual world and shook her head. I don't know for now. The energy that leaked out is chaotic and violent. There is no such energy in the realm of the gods. No, there is. There is one type, the most mysterious type, Zero said. Everyone was stunned. There were 9 types of elements in the realm of the gods. Other than the elemental energy that had been modified by willpower, they couldn't think of any other type of energy that would look like this. It didn't have a definite form. It didn't look like a flame, nor did it look like it had a real form. It was very strange. Is it a type of energy that has been modified by willpower? Yaohua pondered for a moment and said. Yin Nuoxing shook her head. After being modified by willpower, the form of the original elemental energy will still be in it. If you break it up, you will still be able to feel the original elemental energy. I don't know what it is for now. It's very simple. All of your memories have been erased. I dare say that there are less than 1,000 people in the realm of the gods who still know about this. Moreover, these people have been passed down from the ancient era. They are from the same generation as the 9 deities temple. There should be people in the 9 deities temple who know about this as well. It's just that for safety reasons, they didn't tell you. Zero sat down on the sofa and stretched. What is it? Everyone's curiosity was piqued. If Zero kept them in suspense, they would roll up their sleeves and beat him up. However, Zero didn't intend to keep them in suspense. First, he looked at Yuan Shi, Qin Yin, Nightmare, and Chu Yingzhan and smiled. Do you remember that you said you've heard of the Dark God Temple before? The 4 of them looked at each other and nodded. However, Chu Yingzhan couldn't help but say, I've heard of it before, but I'm not from the ancient era. I'm not even 100 years old yet. Zero shook his head and looked at Yao Hua and the others. What about the rest of you? Have you heard of the Dark God Temple before? Yao Hua and the others looked at each other with confusion in their eyes. After a while, they shook their heads. No, we haven't seen it in the astral library. The God King and the others didn't tell us about it either. Huh? The situation seemed to be out of his expectations. Zero was stunned for a moment. He looked at Chu Yingzhan strangely. That's strange. Well, maybe you've seen it before. There might be various reasons. Anyway, you only know the name now. This is a fact. Chu Yingzhan frowned and nodded. And then? The 9 temples have 10 temple masters. 9 of them are from the Temple of Elements. The remaining 1 is the chief temple master. This is what you know, right? In addition to the 9 temples, you also know about Lin Shang some time ago. Zero looked at everyone. Everyone nodded. Yin Nuoxing shivered. Wait, I seem to have guessed something. Zero rolled his eyes and continued. Then have you ever thought about what the element of the Grand Hall Master, that is, the father of me and this idiot number 2 is? Everyone was stunned. If I tell you that there are actually 10 Temple of Elements, can you think of anything? Everyone was shocked. Could it be, I'll say it again, the Dark Temple is the 10th Temple of Elements. And from the beginning to the end, there's only one person in the entire temple. What do you think? Everyone was shocked. Everyone was so scared that their faces turned pale. They looked at each other and couldn't hide the astonishment in their eyes. The Dark Element. Yin Nuoxing whispered. The 10th element? Huh. Strange, how do I know this? He was stunned for a moment. It was as if a shackle had been unlocked in his mind. A feeling of enlightenment and enlightenment suddenly emerged. Everyone else also had the same feeling. When the words 10th element were mentioned, they were not shocked at all. Instead, they treated it as a very normal thing. It was as if they were just discussing how many elements there were in the realm of the gods. What was there to be shocked about? It was just a moment before they were annihilated. Hey, that's strange. I suddenly remembered the Dark God Palace. Yuan Shi slapped his forehead. He blinked and said, the Temple Master of the Dark Temple and the entire temple has only one person, Forbidden God Quartermoon. It belongs to the Temple of Elements. It is the most special temple. In the entire God realm, there are less than 100 people who have the Dark Element. Moreover, this was in the ancient era when the power of all elements was surging. At that time, people who had the light element were everywhere. It was far from being as precious as it is now. Let's talk about the explanation later. Why do you suddenly know about it? Now that I think about it, I seem to have seen it before in the astral library of the Divine Palace. Yao Hua jumped up in shock and quickly said, Zero glanced at everyone and sighed, because this matter was erased by them on the level of the laws. The reason why I'm only bringing this up now is not because I want to keep it a secret. Based on the current situation, we're still not sure if it has anything to do with the dark element. The so-called void beast should be the energy that leaked out from the fragment. However, the dark element doesn't have such strange energy. But now, we can confirm that the ninth fragment is the most important one. It should contain some of Father's power. No wonder it could grow legs and run away. After all, it's the carrier of power. The light element and the dark element mutually reinforce and counteract each other. The light element pursues extreme speed and surpasses the limit of the speed of light. The dark element pursues the other extreme, the power to break the laws and immerse oneself in the shadows, breaking away from the shackles of the laws and reaching a level that ordinary people can't do. Compared to the light element that the light element can do, the dark element can also do it. The possessor of the dark element will have a talent domain called the Shadow Realm. This domain can break the shackles of the laws and reach a state of lawlessness. However, at the beginning, this domain is estimated to be not much bigger than a grain of rice. Compared to the light element that can be slightly used by the celestial rank, the possessor of the dark element won't be able to do anything with the dark element unless they cultivate to the demigod rank. The power of the dark element makes it even more strange. Moreover, it's a type of element that leans towards chaos. Do you know that the moment the possessor of the dark element is born, the most dangerous thing is his mother? That is his mother. If she isn't strong enough and accidentally encounters the mutation of the dark element and gives birth to the dark element, the mother will definitely not be able to withstand the chaotic, destructive power of the dark element. That kind of ability to break the laws will immediately destroy the unprepared mother. Zero glided across the sky, causing everyone to feel a chill down their spines. Their faces were covered in cold sweat. Zero continued to speak faintly. The moment the dark element is born, its energy will overflow. The 100 possessors of the dark element that I know of are all dead when they are born. Oh, this sentence sounds like a curse, but it's the truth. Moreover, 90% of them have not grown to the point where they can use the dark element well. In the end, only Father himself has reached the level where he can use the dark element well. You see, it doesn't look like it. The power of the void beast has no laws, no order, and no form. The dark element has a form. It's a cloud of black fog, very similar to demonic aura. It's easy to mistake it, but that unique aura will not be mistaken. Although the dark element can break the laws, it doesn't have the power to change its own form. The laws themselves can't break their own laws, so I think that the power of the void beast is only 20% similar to the dark element. Back then, because of that incident, the power of the dark element was feared by everyone in the celestial realm. The kind of power that can break the laws almost challenged the authority of the gods. Moreover, the impact of that incident was so great that it gradually became a thorn in people's hearts. The celestial realm, which had never been so united, seemed to have a common goal in an instant: to destroy the possessor of the dark element. Before Quarter Moon became a god, she was hunted by everyone in the celestial realm because of the dark element. Once she was discovered, it was normal for friends to become enemies. If it weren't for the 9 temples primogenitors who stayed by her side, Father probably wouldn't have been able to get through the most dangerous moment, and almost everyone in the celestial realm became his enemy. What's the matter? Everyone was a little curious. Although their instincts told them that this incident had great implications, they still couldn't help but want to know. The center of the divine prefecture. To be more specific, in the current location of the little divine prefecture, there was an emperor god who wielded the dark element. Zero swallowed hard, and his hands, which were crossed, could not help but clench a little. Yanuashing noticed this small movement. What happened back then must have affected him greatly. Even if it was just a remnant of his memory, he could still clearly feel that scene. That emperor god self-destructed, and the dark element that was released covered the entire divine prefecture. Not the little divine prefecture, but the divine prefecture, one of the 5 great zones. That incident caused at least 6 figures of the gods to fall. and countless people to die. Her casual words caused the temperature in the room to drop to freezing point. Chapter 869. It was a major disaster that covered the entire region. The god realm suffered heavy losses, and all the lives gathered in the divine land, including the demon world and the demon world, were seriously damaged. Although the people of the three realms stopped fighting because of it, the losses caused were no less than those caused by the high-level battle between the three races. The arrival of the demon world and the demon world attracted many experts from the god realm. The demon world was in the northern wasteland, while the demon world was in the southern plains. The rest of the territories belonged to the experts of the god realm. The battles continued, but there was no high-level battle. No one had the courage to put all their eggs in one basket. When so many experts gathered, the dark elemental god blew himself up. No one knew what exactly happened, but we know that it happened. The dark element that swept out covered the entire divine prefecture, and it was an extremely destructive dark element that was far more powerful than the power that the divine emperor could use. This element was very powerful when it was born, but the possessor couldn't control this power when he was born. It required many years of cultivation before he could obtain the powerful power of the dark element that he was born with. With the power of the divine emperor at that time, the dark element that it triggered was quite terrifying. Its rule-breaking characteristics made the dark element cover the entire divine prefecture in a second. At that time, there were many divine spirits, but not many divine gods. This incident directly led to the death of more than 100,000 divine spirits and the death of trillions of lives. There was even a divine god who was carelessly injured, and the entire divine prefecture became a land of death. Moreover, it spread to the other four major regions, the devil realm and the demon realm. Everyone's faces were pale. Any one of these secrets from the primeval age was enough to make people's hearts tremble. How many people were there in the divine land? They did not know, but they knew that if even the heavenly gods were seriously injured, there should not be many lives left. 100 would be considered lucky. What happened after that? Yahua swallowed. Since the god realm still exists, it should be after that. The stupid father carried the spirit of saving the world and rushed to the divine land regardless of the dissuasion of the ancestors of the 9 deities temple. The latter had no choice but to follow. At that time, he was only an emperor god, not a god realm. Ling sighed faintly. You can guess what happened after that. The 10 of them suppressed all the dark elemental energy, but the energy was too powerful and it spread for some time. It was even harder to deal with. Quarter Moon could only control it within a certain range, which is now the Little Divine Land. There is a barrier outside the Little Divine Land, which was left behind by the dark elemental energy. That barrier covered the sky and blocked all communication between the outside and the inside, including energy. To enter the Little Divine Land requires complicated methods. Even Emperor God Realm would have to spend a lot of effort. And inside the Divine Land of the Primeval Age, laying the Divine Land of the Primeval Age is inside the primeval world. I don't need I tell you the benefits primeval. The primeval age's heaven and earth was much more powerful than the heaven and earth of the present age. Hearing this, Lin Sheng and the others were enlightened. No wonder the journey to the secret realm was so crazy about the 100 places to enter the Little Divine Land. It turns out that there was such a connection. What about Quarter Moon and the others? What happened after they controlled the dark elemental energy? Chu Yingzhan could not help but ask. Didn't I say just now? They were hunted down by the whole world. Ling rolled his eyes. Everyone was stunned. Huh, what happened? It was good that they solved the crisis of the dark elemental energy wreaking havoc in the Divine Land, but they were not grateful to Father because of it. Almost a second after the matter was resolved, they found out that he was also a possessor of the dark elemental energy and treated him like a living bomb. They were afraid that he would explode again and destroy the realm of the gods. So, with the intention of defusing the bomb, in turn, they went after Quarter Moon and the others. At that time, they risked their lives to control the dark elemental energy that was about to spread throughout the realm of the gods. Even the heavenly gods did not dare to pat their chests and say that they could solve it themselves. The power that broke the rules of the realm of the gods had exceeded the heavenly gods' ability to intervene. Yin Nuashing sighed. If they had controlled the dark elemental energy when it first erupted, there would have been a way. But at that time, it was spreading too quickly, and it was too late. Unless another possessor of the dark elemental energy intervened, there was basically no other way. You remembered? Ling looked at him in surprise. I thought you wouldn't think of it before you ate me. A little. When I was listening to you talk, my memory was stimulated a little. Yin Nuashing nodded helplessly. After a while, everyone looked at him, and the expression on his pretty face became incomparably ferocious and twisted. If it were me, I would probably just stand by and watch. It's fine if this damned world is destroyed, but F***CK, to burn the bridge after crossing the river, and to burn the bridge built by others. Everyone was shocked by his slightly dark expression. Thinking about it carefully, if they were in his shoes, they would have saved the world with great difficulty. Then, they would be treated as a hidden danger, and the whole world would come after them to deal with them. Thinking about it made them feel extremely uncomfortable. It would have been better if they had not saved the world in the first place. Daddy? Bing Air tugged at Yin Nuashing's sleeve a little worriedly. Her blue-gold eyes flashed as she looked at him. Yin Nuashing sighed and reached out to rub the girl's head. He shook his head and said, "It's nothing. I just remembered some things, and what I felt at that time came as well." Quarter Moon also regretted doing this back then. If he knew that something like this would happen, he would have rather pushed the matter and let it fester even more. He would have bathed the entire god realm in blood. That period of time after that was no different from hell. He was practically forced to stand on the opposite side of everyone. There were a few times when he was so paranoid that he almost treated the 9 patriarchs as his enemies. Ah, what a terrible memory. It was so terrible that I wanted to blow up the entire god realm on the spot. It was so disgusting. As he spoke, his expression darkened again. Everyone was shocked and looked at each other. Then they realized that there was nothing they could do but sigh. This kind of thing was so melodramatic that it was disgusting. It was so disgusting that it made people's hair stand on end. The long period of darkness would eventually pass. Later, Father became a god, and the world did not even dare to let out a fart. Ha! An emperor god with the element of darkness had already caused a heavenly god to have a hard time. Who knows what a god level with the element of darkness would do? Zero laughed. The intensity of the explosion would be countless times greater, and the deterrence would be infinite. Everyone shuddered. They thought that the heavens were going to play the god realm to death. Yin Nuashing said softly, "There's nothing after that. To be precise, we didn't remember anything. As for the disappearance of the element of darkness, it was caused by them. When Quarter Moon fell, the element of darkness was erased from the plane of laws." Zero continued. From then on, the god realm did not give birth to another person with the element of darkness. Even everything related to the element of darkness was erased from the world. It became a memory in everyone's heart, and it was a very vague memory. Even if it was mentioned, it would be ignored. This was to make the element of darkness a part of history. As for me, because I'm Quarter Moon soul split, I inherited the heavenly god's characteristics, so I still remember the element of darkness. However, I can't say for certain things that were forgotten due to uncontrollable factors. Zero sighed and shook his head. And because I was the one who brought it up, this neglected state of cognition would quickly be removed. This is why you all suddenly remembered it. You were affected by the heavenly god's divine right. Although we can't control it freely now, a little of the heavenly god's divine right is leaked out. Once we bring it up, this kind of thing that has been erased from the plane of laws would quickly lose its shielding ability. Of course, this is only for you, not the whole world. Even if you go back and tell others about it, they wouldn't understand anything. All in all, this is what the heavenly god's divine right can do. It can erase the entire cognition from the plane of laws and make it a silhouette in everyone's heart, untouchable and unknowable. This level of influence can even affect the plane of laws and make it impossible to create another person with the element of darkness. After hearing this, everyone let out a sigh of relief. The heavenly gods, they were indeed a group of terrifying guys. Well, I'm saying this because we suddenly feel a little threatened. If the void beast is really related to the element of darkness, we have to be more careful in the battle in the world of Leviathan. The celestials of the 5 elemental realms are already in a terrible situation. At this moment, we are not much stronger than them. When we fight, we have to control our energy. Our recovery speed is very slow in this place. Although your energy carriers are all solid, you still have to be very careful. Our opponent this time is not human, so our advantage is limited, Zero said. Yin Nuoxing pulled her long, colorful hair with her fingers. After a while, when she saw that everyone had quieted down, she raised her head and tapped between her eyebrows with her fingers. She pulled out a golden charm and casually threw it to everyone. This is used to recover energy. 1 charm can fully recover. Oh, you should have more than enough, so be careful. Don't stuff yourselves to death. Yuan Shi and Lin Sheng, who were already familiar with these charms, laughed dryly. When they turned around and saw the confused look on the others' faces, they calmly introduced them to everyone. Ugh, I don't have any more. I've used up all my inventory. It'll take a long time to save up 1,000 charms. I haven't been able to get them all this time. Yin Nuoxing scratched between her eyebrows in distress. She did not even keep her charms for herself. All right. Don't worry. We're from the celestial realm. Nothing will happen to us. Chu Yingzhan casually patted Yin Nuoxing's worried face. Then she asked casually, "Oh, by the way, if the fragments are collected, are you going to eat them? Will you inherit the element of darkness?" Yin Nuoxing and Zero froze. Everyone was stunned as well. The atmosphere in the room suddenly froze. Yin, sorry for the long wait. I have a lot of things to arrange after the war. Oh, what's the matter? The door of the room was suddenly pushed open. Ivan and the other 4 squeezed into the room side by side. As soon as they opened their mouths to speak, they felt that the atmosphere in the room was not right. They could not help but be stunned. The 5 people who suddenly barged in dissipated the heavy atmosphere at once. Everyone quickly turned around and waved their hands. It's nothing. Is the situation very serious? Yin Nuoxing quickly changed the topic. Ugh, it's not very serious. There are basically no casualties on the battlefield. With us here, even if the people died in battle, they will be resurrected very quickly, unless their souls did not escape. It's just that the matter of repairing the fortress is a little troublesome. It will take a lot of effort to remove the energy left behind by the Void Beast. Before it is completely removed, the buildings cannot be rebuilt. Ivan took 2 steps forward and casually pulled out a chair. He turned it around and sat down. He leaned on the back of the chair and said, "In short, the invasion this time has been resisted. The Holy Kingdom is also safe and sound." The invasion did not come from the same place? Yin Nuoxing asked. In the world of Livian, the Holy Kingdom is the only place that humans have firmly defended. It's 10,000 miles long and 8,000 miles wide. The other places have already been established by the Void Beasts. It's a shame to say that we once rushed into those places and wiped out all the Void Beasts. However, that did not stop the Void Beast from continuing to appear. Old Man Charles sighed. Furthermore, if a large number of Void Beasts are wiped out in a short period of time, it will also cause the Void Beasts to gather. Depending on the number of Void Beasts that are wiped out, a gigantic Void Beast will eventually appear, similar to an existence of a general. The strongest Void Beast that has appeared so far has the same power as the 5 great divine beings. Well, that was also caused by a mistake. At that time, we had not yet grasped this pattern. Ivan laughed dryly and scratched his head. You mean the ones that we saw just now? The ones that gathered into a large group? Yin Nuoxing asked. When they came down, they had already wiped out a large group of Void Beasts. After that, they saw the black fog gathering madly. He could feel a terrifying wave of energy coming from within, but that wave of energy was still brewing before it was destroyed by Zero. Ivan rolled his eyes. That thing is probably comparable to the strongest void beast that we have ever encountered. Fortunately, it was destroyed by you guys before it could appear. If it had survived, this Bloodwing fortress would not have been able to hold on. There will be an invasion almost every day, big or small. There will be a large raid every half a month. Just like the scale just now, there are a total of 6 main passes in the Holy Kingdom, and there are also warriors of the Eldar race guarding those passes. It is already very difficult to hold the front line that is thousands of miles long. We have also tried to break into the gathering point of the Void Beasts, but the results were not great. Yin Nuashing muttered. He did not expect that this planet alone was already so serious. Counting that, there were still 12 planets, plus a large headquarters, and there was also an unknown powerful life form there. Do you have a map? Yin Nuashing raised his head. Ivan nodded slightly. With a wave of his hand, a sphere appeared in the space in front of him. The sphere was basically black, but there was a bumpy area with other colors, like a spot branded on the surface of the sphere. Yin Nuashing understood at a glance that this was the last line of defense of the Holy Kingdom. It was less than 1/50th the size of Livian planet. The other dark areas were occupied by the Void Beasts. Wherever they were, there would be black clouds. This huge black cloud enveloped the entire Livian planet. This is where we are, the Bloodwing Fortress. Ivan pointed at the intersection of the clean area and the black cloud, towards the south. Then, he pointed at the edge of the clean area. This way, the Southern Eagle Fortress, the Puling Fortress, the Black Feather Fortress. There are a total of 6 places, all of which are guarded. Yin Nuashing noticed that those places were all fortresses built beside mountains or cliffs. Ifan also knew this and said, in fact, the terrain has no effect on the Void Beasts. They can hide their army and silently pass through the mountains. However, we have set up spirit light barriers in this area. The spirit light barriers have the power to automatically counterattack. The Void Beasts can't break through in a short period of time and will even suffer a large number of casualties from the counterattack of the barriers. Moreover, it will notify us of where we have been attacked, and we will go forward to defend and encircle them. On this point, the Void Beasts have finally learned to be smart after attacking for 10,000 times. They no longer attack through the barriers, but chose to attack these passes. Is there any flaw in the spiritual light barriers? Yin Nuashing asked with a strange expression. If there aren't any restrictions, they shouldn't just form an incomplete circle without sealing it, right? The spiritual light barriers are used for positional warfare. They can borrow the power of the earth, mountains, forests, and other things to cover an area. The more complex the terrain is, or if there are strange things in the enclosed area, it can increase the might of the spiritual light barriers. If it is in the starry sky, it can create a space in the starry sky. However, there's almost nothing in these areas, so they naturally become gaps. It's not that they can't be set up, but rather that the spiritual light barriers can't borrow too much power. Even if they are set up, their defensive power won't be enough to defend against the invasion of the Void Beasts. Ivan nodded and sighed. In fact, the spiritual light barriers in this area are also very weak. A general-class Void Beast can break through them without much effort. Thus, the majority of our troops are stationed at the Bloodwing Fortress and the Black Feather Fortress. They're also guarding this line of defense. Ivan pointed at the area between the Bloodwing Fortress and the Black Feather Fortress in the northeast. The terrain in this area wasn't as complicated as the other areas, so its defensive power was relatively weaker. Yin Nuashing nodded and turned to look at the large group of people. After thinking for a while, she looked at Ivan and said, "You see, our group can be divided into 6 groups to help you stabilize your position. If possible, we can also counterattack. As for general-class Void Beasts, we also have our own methods to deal with them. Then, let's go to the Black Feather Fortress." Lin Sheng stretched out his hand and pointed at the northeastern area. Then, he looked at Shui Lingfeng and smiled. "Senior Shui, you guys can split into groups to guard another area." "Okay, Wen Yao, there's something to do." Shui Lingfeng nodded with a smile. The black-haired youth beside him rolled his eyes. Then, let's go to the Guanlin Fortress at the top. Yao Hua pointed at the sphere. Let's go to the Southern Eagle Fortress, Shui Ling said softly. Leave the Puling Fortress in the northwest to us. Mr. Yin, you guys can guard the Bloodwing Fortress. Jun Luo, he looked at Yin Nuoxing with a smile and said, Okay, no problem. You guys be careful. Yin Nuoxing nodded. Okay. Everyone responded softly. Then, their figures flashed, and they suddenly disappeared from the room, leaving Ivan and the others who hadn't reacted yet. After a while, the slightly crowded room suddenly became empty. Only Yin Nuoxing and the other 9 people were still standing there. Ivan and the others didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Just like that, it was decided so easily. Don't worry. Although they are a bit messy and occasionally act without thinking, they're still teammates worth trusting. Yin Nuoxing gave Ivan a thumbs up, revealing a smile that signaled him to be at ease. Forget it. I don't care about you guys anymore. Ivan and the others looked at each other and shook their heads with bitter smiles. Charles looked at Xianya and said, Xianya, go and tell the other 5 fortresses that reinforcements are coming. Let them be mentally prepared and don't be scared. Xianya nodded and her delicate body flashed and disappeared. She's used to send messages? Yin Nuoxing saw that this woman named Xianya was always ordered to send messages and couldn't help but have a strange expression. More or less, she is a wind spirit god and is faster than us. Well, although we can just go to the city center and send a long-distance message, we're still used to having her help. Charles grinned. Yin Nuoxing and the others looked at each other for a while and said in unison, Isn't she silent? Ivan and the others stared blankly for a moment before suddenly reacting. Damn, then how does she send messages every time? And every time, she sends them to the right place. Yin Nuoxing suddenly felt that the Bloodwing Fortress might be finished. Chapter 870. Perhaps it was caused by their random thoughts, or perhaps it was just a coincidence. When the group of people dispersed, and Yin Nuoxing and the others were chatting, Ozier's long silver hair suddenly stood up and emitted a golden and silver light, which made everyone stunned. However, what made Yin Nuoxing and the others even more stunned was what she said. The spirit guide has detected a large number of void beasts gathering. The number is unknown. The first spirit guide has been destroyed. Initial estimation is that there are more than 10,000 of them. Osier's golden eyes flashed. She looked at Ivan and Yin Nuoxing and the others seriously and said, We only have half an hour to prepare. Wow, one wave after another. I can feel their energy waves too. I'm afraid there are more than 100,000 of them. The ground is shaking. Zero exclaimed. His golden eyes seemed to be able to see through the wall and look outside. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone felt a tremor like an earthquake. The ground was shaking violently, as if countless heavy objects were rolling over from afar. How can it be so fast? It's never been like this. Ivan murmured seriously. Before he could finish his sentence, he saw Yin Nuoxing and the others pointing at themselves helplessly. Ivan immediately understood. It was probably because they killed a general tier void beast as soon as they came down, which stimulated the void beasts. Anyway, there was an inexplicable reason. Who knows? There was a soft knock on the door. Before the person outside the door could speak, Ivan responded, We already know. Those who can still move, hurry up and prepare a defensive line. Those who are lightly injured, support them from the rear. As for those who can't move, at least let them use their psychic energy. Don't let the void beasts take advantage of the situation. If we can't stop them this time, the Bloodwing Fortress will be finished. Yes, God. The person outside answered loudly. Then there was a series of hurried footsteps that gradually faded away. Well then, let's move out. After all, we were the ones who lured them out. Yin Nuoxing stretched and smiled. Chu Yingzhan and the others nodded. Chu Yingzhan habitually looked at Ivan and was stunned for a moment. Then, she said with a strange expression, Aren't you going to take down little purple soul first? What? Yin Nuoxing was stunned. Chu Yingzhan pointed at his back helplessly. Yin Nuoxing found a mirror and turned it around. Then he saw a little purple soul grabbing his colorful hair and tying it into a knot. Little purple soul hung herself on his back and then fell asleep. Everyone's expression turned slightly strange when they saw this. She couldn't help but say, "He's become a professional stay-at-home dad. Yin Nuashing, I hit you? No wonder my hair felt this girl. Forget it. Let's not care about her. Let's go." Yin Nuashing shrugged and walked out of the room. Her colorful hair swayed. Only the tied little purple soul was still hanging on his back. Everyone looked at this scene strangely and hurriedly followed behind. After coming out of the lounge, he could already see that the colossus of the Bloodwing Fort was in operation at this moment. Everyone inside was hurriedly running on the streets or flying in the sky, carrying weapons, shields, and energy stones. They were hurriedly delivering supplies to the city walls. The city walls that had been damaged in the previous battle had already been completely repaired. It had been less than 4 hours since the end of the battle. The walls are being repaired quite quickly. Nightmare couldn't help but comment. Everyone was speechless. Yes, after all, this wall would break down every few days. There are spirit runes in the wall that can better resist the void beasts. Every time a battle ends, the first thing they do is repair the wall. The people's wall repair skills are improving day by day. Last time it took 4 hours. Not bad. Not bad. There's a breakthrough. Ivan nodded continuously with a proud expression on his face. Yin Nuashing and the others were speechless. How is he so rich? Fight! Fight! The tense atmosphere along the way was almost completely cleared up by Yu alone. While everyone was lowering their heads and nervously preparing, she was the only one who was cheering because she could fight. Yin Nuashing was speechless. Why didn't he know that this girl loved fighting so much? Yin Nuashing patted Yu's head and said softly, "Be careful. The enemies this time are quite powerful. They are not the defenseless wraiths we saw in the Sealed Skies land." Yes. You will be careful. Then she will do her best to kill the enemies. Brother Yin, don't worry. Yu giggled and jumped into Yin Nuashing's arms. There was an uncontrollable smile on her face, and Little Moon couldn't help but sigh. A few minutes later, Yin Nuashing and the rest arrived at the city wall. The Golden Barrier was the defensive barrier that covered half of the mountain range. At this moment, a black line appeared at the end of the basin that was blasted out by Yin Nuashing's group. Everyone looked into the distance. At the end of the horizon, there was a black wave. Those grotesque and even disgusting void beasts were surging towards the Bloodwing Fortress with an imposing aura. The black wave stretched out for several thousand meters. Countless disgusting black creatures had liquid like black energy flowing from their large mouths. When the liquid dripped onto the ground, it turned into gas and spread out. That endless army numbered more than 10,000. At a glance, there were at least 1 million or even 10 million. The endless void beasts were rampaging without any order. In the black wave, other than those 3 to 4 meter tall ordinary void beasts, there were also many void beasts that were over 10 meters tall. They formed a horizontal line and walked with heavy steps like the city wall. Perhaps it was wrong to say that they were walking because they didn't have legs. They were dragging their bodies along the ground. At the very back of this army, there was a huge void beast that was over 100 meters tall. It was like a mountain, and its body was surging with black gas. Its large mouth was open, and it spat out black gas that was like clouds and mist. Every time the army moved, the earth would tremble slightly. It was really a scene of thousands of soldiers and horses galloping. As they moved, the thick black clouds in the sky also pressed down. Black clouds are pressing down on the city, and the city is about to be destroyed. At most, there are 10 minutes left before the battle begins. Zero whistled and said leisurely, "Oh, great spiritual god. Osier, your spirit guide, seems to be wrong. I have already said that you should help those little fellows who don't have intelligence to be enlightened." The extremely handsome spirit race guy stroked his messy hair, and his cheeks twitched slightly. Tisk. Osier smacked her lips, glanced at him, and then turned her head. "All right, now is not the time to argue. If we can't stop this wave, the Bloodwing Fortress will be finished. The reinforcements from the Holy Empire behind us will also... Cynthia, why don't you go and call for reinforcements first? There are hundreds of generals and one general. This is going to be a tough fight. Ivan said. Cynthia shook her head, flicked her long silver hair, and said faintly, "No soldiers. Open the battle line." Everyone was stunned for a moment. The handsome guy jumped up in shock. Damn, Cynthia spoke. As soon as his voice fell, Osier slapped him away with her shoe and then coughed dryly. Cynthia also spoke. It seems that the situation this time is serious. In other words, the same thing happened to the other 5 fortresses. The Void Beasts suddenly invaded, and the Holy Empire sent all their troops. The 5 fortresses are probably in a tight situation, and they are unable to send reinforcements. Moreover, with the suppression of the Black Fog, the spiritual communication sent to the spirit realm is also suppressed, and they are isolated. It seems that this is going to be a tough fight. How did you get so much information from those 6 words? Yin Nuashing was surprised. Ahem, it seems that we have to rush out and kill around. Ivan coughed dryly, rolled his eyes, and was about to jump down from the city wall with his team. TSK, wait, there's no hurry. Zero pulled Ivan back, smiled, and pointed at Yin Nuashing, who was doing stretching exercises, and said with a smile, "The main force said that he wants to fire the first shot." Ivan was stunned. Without giving them too much time to be stunned, Yin Nuashing finished stretching. With a light shout, she waved her right hand, and the 8-meter-long sun god bow appeared in her hand. Yin Nuashing took a light breath, pinched the bowstring with her slender fingers, and pulled the sun god bow into a half-moon shape. Colorful energy with the power of heaven and earth gathered on the sun god bow, condensing into a blurry crystal arrow a few meters long. Yin Nuashing raised her body, pointed the bow at an angle to the sky, and with a light shout, the crystal arrow burst out with a sharp whistling sound as it cut through space. The rainbow-colored crystal arrow shot into the sky and suddenly exploded, splitting into tens of thousands of thin rainbow-colored energy arrows. They pierced through the dark clouds with overwhelming momentum, opening countless holes in the dark clouds, and pierced into the bodies of the void beasts. It was as if rainbow-colored energy was raining down. Yin Nuashing opened her eyes and looked for a while, then stretched out her right hand, snapped her fingers, and grinned. Burn! Boom! A chuckle sounded like a battle cry. On the other side of the horizon, an astonishing rainbow-colored energy storm suddenly appeared. Several energy tornadoes that were tens of thousands of feet long rose into the sky. Huge energy shock waves turned into visible white lines that swept out, blasting countless void beasts into nothingness. Not even a speck of dust was left behind. Those void beasts that were more than 10 meters long were also swept into the energy storm. Their bodies burned with terrifying rainbow-colored energy flames, but they didn't instantly collapse. The large holes that had been blasted open in their bodies were repaired by the black mist in a few breaths of time, and they were restored to their original state. As for the general-level void beasts, they turned a blind eye and directly passed through the energy storm, not being affected at all. A perfect attack, Ivan praised without holding back. A large number of the small ones died, and 4 or 5 of the small generals died. As for the general level, you didn't let it come out that day, but this one has taken form, and it won't be so easy to break. Is that so? Yin Nuashing pursed his lips. Then I'll do it again. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone saw him snap his fingers again. A faint energy aura was contained in this snap, and it caused the space to vibrate slightly. Everyone was stunned, and they felt that the world was suddenly rumbling. Yin Nuashing gave a thumbs up, and his index finger pointed to the horizon, while his other 3 fingers curled up. As he snapped his fingers, the energy storm suddenly dissipated, and the energy that filled the air suddenly changed direction, and all the energy flowed into the ground like a trickle. The colorful energy contained the light element, and almost in an instant, all the energy gathered to form an incomparably huge colorful array formation that covered an area of thousands of meters. You, How did you use an array formation like this? Chu Yingxian looked at the huge array formation that appeared in shock, and her jade-like hand pinched Yun Nuoxing's waist behind her back as she muttered, "Bang!" Instead of answering her, Yun Nuoxing let out a chuckle, and the world suddenly trembled. A terrifying, destructive power descended from the sky, and even the space was trembling. The aura of the power of the stars spread wildly in the air, and this time he didn't need to say anything. Everyone knew what he was using, and they all raised their heads in unison. When Ivan and the others saw that everyone had raised their heads, they also raised their heads, and then they saw, in the sky, it was clearly daytime, but an incomparably brilliant star had appeared. The cross-shaped starlight was extremely dazzling, and the moment everyone raised their heads, it suddenly exploded. It was like an eternal light, and it transformed into an extremely pure azure pillar of light that fell from the sky. The enormous pillar of starlight that was tens of thousands of meters tall fell to the ground with a destructive power. The wildly surging power of the stars exploded into several halos on the pillar of light, and an unparalleled shock wave swept out from it. The earth collapsed with a loud bang, and with the huge pillar of light as the epicenter, the earth that had already turned into a basin was almost blasted into the ground. The azure pillar of light was like a huge beacon erected between heaven and earth, and at this moment, the entire Livian world trembled. Long live the Spirit God! The Spirit God is invincible and invincible. The people of Bloodwing Fort were dumbfounded as they looked at this beam of light. Suddenly, an earth-shattering shout burst out from the crowd. Moreover, this shout couldn't be stopped. Countless people were madly shouting towards the sky. Gradually, this shout turned into a crazy wave. It almost scared the group of people on the city wall. Whoa, what a big commotion. Yao Hua and Lin Sheng, who were far away on the horizon, also saw this terrifying pillar of starlight. They couldn't help but sigh. Yun Nuoxing unleashed her ultimate attack so quickly, which put a lot of pressure on them. Those void beasts clearly didn't have much intelligence. They didn't show any signs of defense when they were bombarded by the arrow rain, and this time, when Starfall was unleashed. They just charged forward with all their might, using their powerful bodies to resist the energy. At this moment, they had a taste of the bitter consequences of using this method to resist external forces. The moment the huge beam of starlight bombarded them, almost the entire army of void beasts was completely drowned. Hiss! Even Ivan sucked in a breath of cold air. The few of them looked at Yun Nuoxing in shock. Just as they were about to say something, they saw the latter's long hair gradually turning white while maintaining the starlight pillar. They were stunned again. Is he okay? Feeling Yun Nuoxing's vitality fading away, Osier asked worriedly. It's nothing. Don't be nervous. He knows what he's doing. Zero smiled and waved his hand. Almost as soon as he finished speaking, the tyrannical pillar of starlight suddenly trembled and disappeared. At this time, Yun Nuoxing's long hair was only left with less than 1/5 of its original color. This movement used almost all of his strength again. Fortunately, he didn't use his full strength. Otherwise, he would probably be lying on the ground right now. After the pillar of starlight disappeared, the scene on the other side of the horizon appeared again. Everyone hurriedly looked over, and then collectively sucked in a breath of cold air. The land that had already turned into a basin was directly blasted into a huge magma pit. The army of void beasts that were covered by the huge pillar of starlight, except for the general-level behemoth, were all wiped out. They're all dead. Chu Yingxian was stunned. Before everyone could rejoice for a second, a black spatial rift more than 100 meters tall suddenly opened behind the general-class void beast. Everyone was stunned when they saw this, and an ominous premonition surged in their hearts. In the black spatial rift, the sound of heavy objects falling to the ground came with a loud bang, accompanied by the sound of rattling chains. Then two huge void beasts staggered out of it. Black tides surged out of the spatial rift, ranging from 3 to 4 meters long to more than 10 meters long. Moreover, The number this time was several times larger than the previous one. F asterisk CK. F asterisk CK. Is there an end to this? Ivan's eyes widened in shock. He had never heard of such a way of replenishing his strength. They're probably coming from the main nest planet. There are so many of them, Zero exclaimed. He looked at Yun Nuoxing, who was rolling her eyes vigorously, and said with a smile, "Looks like you provoked them. They're going to fight you to the death." "What does it have to do with me?" Yun Nuoxing rolled her eyes. How could they fight such a shameless way of fighting? His starfall didn't kill the general class void beast. Of course, it was also because he didn't use his full strength. But now, there were two more. Panting, Yun Nuoxing wiped the cold sweat on her forehead and raised her hand. "Let me try again." Before she could finish speaking, Yun Nuoxing was pulled back. Turning around, he saw Zero holding onto his arm with a smile and shaking her head at him. "Recover. Let's do it. Boss, why don't you take a break? We're here for you. Even your AoE skills have cooldowns," Nightmare chuckled. "Go and rest." Qinyan stared at Yun Nuoxing and said very straightforwardly. Yun Nuoxing shook his slightly dizzy head. Clearly, he knew that he was nearing his limit. Without saying anything, he nodded to everyone, took 2 steps back, leaned against the wall, and closed his eyes to rest. Cough, cough. "All right, we need to move around too. Osier, help Yin recover." Ivan nodded. After all, this was their battle. They didn't intend to stand by and watch Yun Nuoxing and the others use skills one after another. After giving the order, they began to accumulate power. Osier nodded and placed her hand on Yun Nuoxing's shoulder. Mei Mao closed her eyes slightly, and a golden energy slowly flowed into Yun Nuoxing's body, replenishing the energy he had consumed, including his life force. This was the first time he truly felt the power of the 5 elemental realms god race. It was incomparably holy. It was the same as Shire and the others' power. It purified impurities and was very effective in healing. Other than the fact that it was much weaker, it was almost the same as Ming's holy power. "Thank you." Yin Nuoxing smiled gently. Osier also smiled back. Mei Mao looked at the approaching battle line in the distance and frowned slightly. Chapter 871. On the vast battlefield, black energy and golden light wantonly flew everywhere. Countless black void beasts rushed over from the horizon like a tide. The 300-meter-tall black beasts were like fortresses slowly dragging their bodies. The spatial crack had already closed, and the countless void beasts that came with it caused everyone to be badly battered. Yin Nuo Star threw out 2 big moves at the beginning to kill countless void beasts, but now it was equivalent to fighting for nothing. Yin Nuoxing's scalp tingled as he looked at the vast black waves below the city wall. His original plan was quite good. After killing the small minions with 1 or 2 moves, there would only be 1 big one left. Even if he was exhausted, the others could swarm up and kill it. Now, even though he was exhausted, the number of enemies on the other side did not decrease at all, and there were even 2 more big ones. On the battlefield, the eyes of Ivan, Zero, and the others had turned red. They had exerted all their strength to forcefully block the black waves behind the golden light barrier. Due to the addition of Zero and the others, the black waves were pushed back a few times. Those small void beasts couldn't even reach the front of them. Even the 10-meter-tall junior general class void beast was easily knocked down by the joint attack of 2 or 3 people. As for the general class void beast, it was still staggering in the distance. By the time all the small void beasts were killed, the 3 big ones would also reach the golden light barrier. By then, the Bloody Wing Fortress would have to be abandoned. There was no reinforcements in the sudden all-out war in the Livian world. Ivan and the others only had these forces at hand. Not only them, but the other 5 fortresses were also in the same situation. The Holy Kingdom had already emptied their own defense and put all their combat power into the frontline battle. If they could not hold on, it was only a matter of time before they were destroyed. Nightmare smashed a large number of void beasts with a crazy claw. Her whole body was emitting billowing demonic aura. She slapped out a huge palm print that was hundreds of meters long, destroying a large number of void beasts. Then, she clashed with the general-level void beasts a dozen times and quickly killed them with the help of the others. Beside her, a beautiful figure emitting an even stronger demonic aura laughed wildly while killing, which made everyone blush with shame. After fighting against the tide of void beasts for a long time, Nightmare took a deep breath, and a ferocious giant claw condensed from demonic aura split a general-level void beast in half. The claw suddenly disappeared, and Nightmare shouted, "The defense line can't be expanded anymore. Retreat. Shrink. Spiritual shooters. Cut off the path of retreat. Release all your spiritual power and save it for a big one." Ivan swept away a large number of void beasts in front of him and roared to the rear. When Yin heard this shout, she couldn't help but lower her head and withdraw her gaze from the horizon. Nightmare and the others were moving together to shrink the defense line back to the entrance of the mountain range. It was relatively narrow there, and it was easy to fight the enemy. Although it was good to expand the defense line, it was easy to attack and difficult to defend. The black tide showed no signs of stopping. It was very difficult for them to stop the void beasts outside. There were enemies in all directions, and the whole battlefield seemed to be filled with energy flying everywhere. Sometimes, they were worried that they would be knocked down by the energy of their own people. The fighting style of Ivan and the other Spirit Clan members was an eye-opener for Yin Nuashing. The golden light on their bodies belonged to the divine power. It could expel evil spirits when fighting and heal when defending. Perhaps it was because of the different branches of the divine race. The attributes of their divine power were also different. Cynthia's divine power was more of a wind attribute. When she attacked, the air around the battlefield was controlled by her. Although Ivan and the others didn't show that they were using any elements or attributes of heaven and earth, their fighting style was also different. Charles, the middle-aged man, seemed to be more of a support on the battlefield. When the golden light on his body shone on them, all of them were full of vitality. Even the warrior who seemed to be too weak to stand up to a gust of wind was able to display a power that was far beyond his imagination. With a single slap, he sent a void beast flying. Without the power to deal large-scale damage, this battle has become a stalemate. When the 3 general-class void beasts get close to the Bloodwing fortress, it will be difficult to deal with them. Oshul stood beside Yin Nuashing, trying her best to restore the latter's strength. Her voice was a little serious. The defense line of the Leviathan world has not shrunk to what it is now. Many fortresses have been destroyed by the general-class void beasts. Even for us, it is not easy for a squad to take out one general-class void beast. Now there are 3 of them. Looking at the serious expression on Oshul's beautiful face, Yin Nuashing pondered for a moment. Then he smiled. "It's okay. I can almost use my full strength in one strike. According to my calculations, killing a general-class void beast should not be a problem." Hearing that, Oshul shook her head. Her golden eyes looked at Oshul seriously. "You can't kill so many of them at once. By then, a void beast that is stronger than a general-class void beast might appear." "Oh, I forgot that you have the power to deal with a void beast that has not appeared yet." Oshul smiled and shook her head. She clearly remembered the general-class void beast that had not appeared yet after Zero's one strike. With that in mind, Oshul turned Mei Mao to the ground and led everyone to retreat. Zero, who was standing at the front of the line like an iron wall, blinked. "His power is time. You recognize it?" Yin Nuashing nodded. "Zero's power is time. To put it simply, he is the incarnation of time. He can control a large amount of time flow. However, if he fights for a long time, he will easily use up the time flow. He is also very fragile. A small void beast can send him flying with a single slap. Chu Yingzhan is earth and wind. That crazy girl. Well, this place does not lack her energy, so we can skip her. The others are just what they look like on the surface." Yin Nuashing pointed at his companions on the battlefield. Then he looked at his half-recovered long hair and said, "As for me, you can treat it as if I have the power to control all energy. I just don't know if I can borrow your power." Oshul blinked and took a breath. a very magical power, but it is also very dangerous. Your power is related to the ability to devour energy. Although you have only used 2 moves, it is enough for me to see that. If you do not control it well, you can easily devour yourself. Yin Nuoxing was stunned. He did not expect her to be able to see through his power so quickly. However, when he thought that the other party was a god, it did not seem strange that she could see through his power. As for the last sentence, he just smiled and said, "Don't worry. The ability to devour energy is only part of it. If it is only this, then I will consider whether my energy is safe or not." If the divine physique of receiving soul could only devour energy, then there was nothing magical about it. Looking at the divine realm, and even the 8 elemental realms, there were countless special life forms and physiques with this kind of power. However, this was only a small feature of the divine physique of receiving soul. Oshul saw that he did not seem to be joking, so she nodded and did not say anything more. She focused on helping him recover his power. Is it okay if you don't help? Although it was good to have someone to help him recover his power, Yin Nuoxing felt that it would not be a problem if he did not help him for a while. He had brought several energy carriers with him, so he did not have to worry about not being able to recover his power. His golden eyes looked towards the chaotic battlefield. Countless void beasts were flying about. Golden and various colored energies were the only light spots within the black waves, burning for a long time without extinguishing. Far in the distance, the 3 commander rank void beasts were currently crossing the gigantic basin with destructive momentum. It wouldn't take long for them to reach the front of the spiritual light barrier. A single slap from them would be enough to shatter this frail barrier, and the Bloodwing fort behind would be in imminent danger. My power is more suitable for healing and purifying in the rear than fighting head-on, Oshul said softly. Yin Nuoxing said, "Oh, so she is a nanny." Captain thinks that Yun's power may be the turning point of this battle. If I'm not there, the front line will be under a lot of pressure, so... Oshul's voice stopped abruptly. She looked at him awkwardly and accidentally said it. Haha, it's okay. It's a very correct judgment. Anyway, I'm just a mobile fortress. My power is suitable for large-scale battles. Sometimes, I can use all my power in one attack. A long battle is a nightmare for me. Yin Nuoxing shrugged. A single attack is enough to turn the tide. Seeing that he did not care about it, Oshul put away her awkward expression and nodded. Well, I can also give you some help now. Yin Nuoxing stretched and waved his hand. He whispered to Zero, Ivan, and the others, "I'm going to set up a magic circle. Don't get excited." Everyone was stunned for a moment. Nightmare was the first to react. He laughed and said, "It should have been here long ago. Hurry up. Throw it out as soon as possible. I can still fight my way out." Yin Nuoxing shrugged and said, "After using the external energy circuit of the artifact has to seal itself for a while. Otherwise, the core will be burned. The seal will only last for 1 or 2 days. I can't use it during this time, so I forgot about it." As he explained, Yin Nuoxing took out the magic circle book and opened it in his hand. He glanced at it and stroked it twice. Although he was not familiar with the power of will, the power of rules, which was 1 level higher than the power of will, was obviously stronger. Using the power of rules to activate the magic circle in the magic circle book could make it stronger and more accurate. "Go!" Yin Nuoxing shouted and threw the magic circle book high into the sky. After a while, the magic circle book reached the highest point and then shook violently. Buzz! A magic circle that was tens of millions of feet wide opened in the sky, covering an area. As soon as the complex and mysterious magic circle appeared, the dark clouds in the sky trembled and showed signs of retreating. This gorgeous scene stunned everyone below. The huge range directly covered the sky above the Black Feather Fortress. Countless people were stunned. "Don't be nervous. This is our friend's movement. It will be amplified in the magic circle, although I don't understand how this magic circle amplifies it." Lin Sheng patted a man in heavy golden armor beside him and said with a smile. When a man heard this, he looked at the sky strangely and then looked at Lin Sheng. Finally, he nodded. It was not just the Black Feather Fortress. This huge magic circle almost covered the entire Holy Kingdom. If the center point was in the center of the magic circle, it would really cover the whole place. However, even if it was spread out in the Bloodwing Fortress in the south, there were still 4 fortresses that saw this terrifying movement. The 2 fortresses in the north were a little unlucky because they were far away. Little star, the magic circle is a little bigger, a little bigger. We can all see the edge. This is not fair. Mr. Yun, we also want to be amplified. Yao Hua, Jun Luo Yi, and the others in the north also saw the huge magic circle. However, they were a little depressed when they saw that the magic circle did not extend over. They immediately shouted in their souls. Yin Nuoxing rolled his eyes and gently waved his hand. The gigantic magic circle in the sky began to revolve, gradually expanding in size and moving towards the north slightly. After a while, after receiving confirmation from Yao Hua and the others, it moved a little more. Only after confirming that the 6 fortresses were covered did he stop the changes to the magic circle. Just moving and expanding the range of the magic circle was not too difficult. After all, the magic circle in the 12-step formation book was already very high level. He looked at the gigantic magic circle and saw that it was at least a god-level heaven restriction or even a god restriction. Of course, its range was not limited to a mere 10 million zhong. If he really wanted to expand it to the limit, Yin Nuoxing could make it cover a range of 10 billion li. However, he would have to expend some effort to maintain the magic circle. After all, the range was too large. The energy in this world was probably not enough for it to absorb just by relying on the formation book's external energy circuit. When a magic circle expanded, he could clearly feel the energy density of the world drop by a level. Yin Nuoxing blinked and raised his head to look at the gigantic magic circle. Not long after it was in place, the magic circle began to revolve. Brilliant golden light descended with particles of light, filling every inch of space. 6 gigantic pillars of golden light landed on the 6 fortresses. Within the boundless divine energy, there was a faint hymn that sounded like the singing of angels. It was incomparably holy. The black clouds trembled slightly after coming into contact with the golden light, wanting to push it away. The countless void beasts below all paused because of the golden light. The entire army seemed to move in slow motion. Even a surging black aura on their bodies was suppressed to the point of shrinking. The black aura released in the air was directly incinerated into nothingness by the golden flames. On the other hand, on the human side, after being illuminated by the golden light, a layer of transparent golden armor appeared on everyone's body. The energy in their bodies turned into even pure divine energy that gushed out. Every one of their eyes shone with brilliant golden light like 2 suns. They looked as if they had been injected with chicken blood as they roared and charged towards the front lines. Even Ivan and Zero were no exception. The energy in their bodies was ignited by the golden light. Phew! I can feel the demonic aura burning. My strength has more than doubled. I suddenly feel like going all out. Nightmare roared at the sky. With a loud boom, demonic aura mixed with divine energy gushed out in all directions. His body swelled up, and his clothes exploded. Yuan Shi, who was beside him, was caught off guard and sent flying by his explosive aura. You better watch out. Yuan Shi got up from the ground with a dark expression. He patted the dust off his body and glared at Nightmare. What a pure divine energy. This level of divine energy is comparable to that of the 5 great spiritual gods. Ivan could not help but praise. He picked up the holy sword in his hand and rushed out while shouting. Yun Nuoxing stretched out his hand and caught the light particles as if he was catching snowflakes. He raised his head and looked at the golden light that dyed the azure formation golden. He couldn't help but laugh. This is a bit of a lucky hit. Oh, it's the divine domain. The domain magic circle is a rare thing. The golden holy light can strengthen one's own people and weaken the enemy's power. It's the same level as the star-marked domain of the star's forbidden domain. The two have similar effects, but this one has the effect of expelling negative effects and expelling filth. Yin Nuashing and Osier were stunned by the faint laughter. They turned around and saw Zero sitting on the city wall with her blonde hair fluttering in the wind. She was swinging her legs and smiling at them. Looking at her calm expression, Yin Nuashing took a breath and asked, "Are you out of time?" "Hey, I'm out. The fight was too fierce." Zero kept nodding, which made Osier stumble and almost fall off the city wall. Yin Nuashing rolled her eyes and ignored the fact that Zero could still laugh in such a bad situation. Her colorful eyes looked at the 3 black mountains in the distance. Zero saw her frown slightly and could not help but laugh. "Those 3 big guys are not easy to deal with. How do you plan to deal with them?" "How do I deal with them?" Yin Nuashing glanced at him. She felt that she had almost fully recovered under the divine domain. She took a deep breath and pulled her hand. The Netherworld Ruins sword shot out and quickly merged with the Linghong sword and the lunar platform. "Of course, I'll cut them down." Seeing this, Zero waved his hand and signaled Osier to stay away. Osier was stunned for a moment. When she saw Yin Nuashing also signaling to her, she quickly jumped off the city wall and ran to the front line to help the soldiers recover their strength. Yin Nuashing took a deep breath. The wriggling ball of light in her hand suddenly shattered. A huge sword that was more than 1 meter long pierced out of it. On the long sword, which was a mixture of purple, black, and blue gold, the silver runes were wriggling like living creatures. With the appearance of the divine sword, there was a terrifying, destructive energy that was close to annihilation. The space around the divine sword was constantly twisting and collapsing. It was as if the entire space structure had become unstable. The 2-colored aura kept jumping in the divine sword. The dazzling light made Zero squint his eyes involuntarily. "Don't use too much strength. If you break the balance of this world, we will have to fix it," Zero reminded her. "That's why I fused 3 god weapons, isn't it?" Yin Nuashing rolled his eyes and raised the 3-meter-long divine sword above his head with one hand. A beam of purple, black, and blue-gold light soared into the sky. In the sky, a brilliant golden light fell from the magic circle and shone on Yin Nuashing, dyeing his whole body golden. The energy in the golden light, along with all the energy in the world, quickly rushed toward the divine sword. Ah, Big Brother is going big. Big Brother is going big. Before the energy was fully charged, a childish laughter startled Yin Nuashing and Zero. The latter quickly turned around and saw that little purple soul, who was hanging on his hair, had woken up and was still struggling to get out of his hair. "Little purple soul, be good. Little purple soul, be good. Let's not play around. Your idiot brother is fully focused." Seeing Yin Nuashing's face twitching, Zero quickly jumped down from the city wall and scooped little purple soul out of the pile of hair. She then pulled her a little further away. Yes, little purple soul is very good." Little purple soul nodded vigorously, then turned around and tangled with Zero's long blonde hair, causing the latter to cry out in surprise. Yin Nuashing did not look at Zero, who was being tortured by little purple soul. He concentrated all his energy into the divine sword. Magic circles of several meters long emerged from his body and slowly moved along his body to the blade of the divine sword. The gathered energy was all turned into a terrifying destructive force by the magic circles. Under the stimulation, the purple, black, and blue-gold light beams slowly turned dark purple. As soon as the destructive force appeared, the Protoss, who had close ties with this world, were the first to react. Even the Protoss from the other fortresses were stunned for a moment. They quickly focused their attention on the top of the city wall of the Bloodwing Fortress. The divine sword in Yin Nuashing's hand emitted a destructive force that caused a layer of cold sweat to appear on their foreheads. "Ivan, little star is going big. Hurry up and retreat. This thing can't differentiate between friend and foe." When Yuan Shi saw Yin Nuashing raising the divine sword, he was so excited that he did not care about anything else. He slapped the beast of nothingness away and screamed as he pulled Yu and Little Moon, who were already fighting, away from the battlefield. Wei turned around and ran, ignoring the beast of nothingness behind him. Chu Yingzhan and the others naturally did not stand there stupidly. Everyone knew how powerful Yin Nuoxing's attack was. Therefore, even though Ivan and the others had only seen it twice, they decisively turned around and ran. As they ran, they did not forget to erect a barrier of light behind them to prevent the beast of nothingness from attacking them. Everyone, hurry up and retreat. Retreat, retreat, retreat. Retreat back into the fortress. When Ivan turned around and saw the divine sword shining like a lighthouse in the starry sky, he immediately sucked in a breath of cold air. He quickly pulled the people next to him and roared, causing everyone to tremble in fear. They did not even have time to shout, "We obey God's orders," as they quickly grabbed the people next to them and ran. The scene was as chaotic as birds and beasts scattering. When everyone turned around and ran for their lives, Yin Nuoxing raised his divine sword high, and a trace of energy leaked out, rolling up a fine energy tornado around him. The space collapsed into a black hole of nothingness. The closed, colorful eyes slowly opened, and the colorful hair that had just recovered turned gray again at a speed visible to the naked eye. It only stopped when it was close to the root of the hair. At this moment, the divine sword seemed to have become the center of a whirlpool. Energy, space, and time are all collapsing towards it. The terrifying suction force caused even the magic circle in the sky to tremble slightly, and its light dimmed for a moment. When the energy had reached its peak, Yin Nuoxing no longer suppressed it. He glanced at the void beasts that were risking their lives to attack the spiritual light barrier, as well as the three mountains in the distance. The divine sword in his hand gently fell down. Netherworld ruins, final slash. A sword light that was 1,000,000 feet long burst out from the city walls. Chapter 872. Like a tidal wave, the dark purple sword aura expanded dozens of times in size the moment it appeared, pushing towards the horizon like a high wall. The dazzling fiery light contained the power to destroy all things, enough to split the world in half. In fact, what everyone saw was indeed the scene of the world being split in two. The sword aura came and went as quickly as it came. Everyone only saw a blinding flash and a terrible power that could not be overpowered. Then they saw a deep fissure cut into the sky and the earth, turning the earth into an abyss. Magma boiled beneath the abyss, while spatial fissures as large as a valley opened in the sky. Spatial power and the weak seeping power of the void kept drilling out of the fissure, and there were even streaks of golden fissures in the middle of the spatial fissure. Those were the fissures of the void that were about to crumble. The self-healing power of the world was repairing the spatial fissure that spanned tens of thousands of miles with great difficulty. As for the ground that had already collapsed, it could not be repaired, and the fissure would probably stand firm there for a long time to come. The sword slashed at the back of Livelian. At least 1/3 of the void beasts in this world were destroyed in that energy calamity. Ivan wiped the cold sweat that kept appearing on his forehead and inhaled sharply, looking at the calm Yuan Shi. "Who are you people? Could you be the other god on the other side?" "On the other side? Which side?" Yuan Shi tilted his head, appearing puzzled. Ivan was also puzzled, but after looking at Yuan Shi and the others for a moment, he shook his head with a faint smile. "No, perhaps I am overthinking. You people do not have the divinity of a divine title. Well, it is not surprising that there are people in the boundless universe who could develop to the same level of power as the Eldar. There are still such worlds, though not many. If Ivan and the others wanted to destroy a planet, a galaxy, or even an entire world, it would be very easy for them to use the power of their priesthoods. They were the gods of the 5 elements realm and had the power equivalent to the rules. It was very easy for them to destroy anything. However, if they were asked to destroy something with pure power like the Yunua planet, it would probably be very difficult for them. That kind of pure energy attack could suffocate them to death just by accumulating it. Ivan and the others knew this, but they did not think too much about it, except that they were even more curious about the identity of Yin Nuoxing and the others. That abyss was right in front of the Bloodwing fortress, and almost blocked the entrance of the valley. Looking down, they could see the rolling magma turning the surrounding cliffs red. In the distant plain and basin, there was nothing left except for a fan-shaped abyss crack. All the void beasts, big or small, had disappeared. No new general-level void beasts appeared in the space, nor did they open another space crack to throw void beasts out of their nests. The group of people had long been prepared to perish together with the enemy. When they saw 3 void beasts, they all thought that the Bloodwing Fortress would fall today. However, they didn't expect that there would be no movement after all the void beasts were eliminated. I thought there would be another wave. After the 3 general-class void beasts were destroyed, a few more would appear. Ivan laughed self-deprecatingly. At first, I was shocked when I saw the momentum. I thought the other side had gone crazy and was determined to take down the Bloodwing Fortress. That's good. We've been hiding for a while. Charles crossed his arms and nodded. Ivan also smiled. He reached out his hand and touched the large crack in front of them, softly saying, "Earth heal." It was a very sudden scene. Yin Nuoshing also heard this, but in the blink of an eye, the large crack disappeared. The earth was flat, as if nothing had happened. TSK, TSK, the divine authority of the Eldar race is really enviable. Yin Nuoshing was a bit speechless. She couldn't help but sigh when she thought about how many scars he had left on the divine realm. This ability to heal scars with a single hand was the innate ability of Ivan and the Eldar race, the innate ability to control the world. You guys are also very powerful. It's just that you don't have a divine authority. It's not that bad. This kind of power is only useful when you're managing the world, but when you're on the battlefield like this, I don't think I'll be able to make those void beasts choke to death with a single word. I might be able to destroy a planet or a star system, but when you eliminate these abnormal life forms one by one, this power won't be of any use. In the end, you'll have to gather your troops and do it yourself. Ivan shrugged. Everyone nodded when they heard this. That was indeed the case. After fighting for more than half a day, it was now dusk and close to nightfall. Ivan and the other Eldar race members were currently organizing the layout of the Bloodwing Fortress defenses. The walls that had yet to be repaired from the previous battle were now being repaired with tools of various sizes. Yin Nuoshing and the others glanced at each other, then jumped down from the walls and went to the inner circle of the walls so as not to disturb the others' work. The 2 walls were less than 50 meters apart from each other. Between the 2 walls was a row of simple wooden houses. Many weapons and defensive equipment were placed outside the wooden houses. Those things that looked like siege engines all had the energy waves of this world, which were spiritual energy waves. However, this time, they did not have the chance to be used. Many of them had been turned into wreckage when the walls were breached before they could be used. The broken walls, collapsed houses, busy people inside and outside the fortress, and the weapons on the battlefield were inverted. Under the blood-red sunset, the scene appeared somewhat bleak, as if they had just survived a disaster. In fact, in the past few years of fighting, there were several spiritual deities on the battlefield, and very few warriors had fallen. Occasionally, there would be people who were carelessly dragged into the depths of the void beast tide, and even their souls could not be extracted. However, there were very few of them. Even if there was only a trace of soul energy left, Ivan and the others could resurrect them with full health on the spot. I suddenly feel that the divine realm is quite peaceful. Yuanshi could not help but sigh as he looked at the people below who were busy but wearing tired smiles on their faces. Why are you suddenly sighing? Yin Nuoshing tilted her head and glanced at him. His body was slightly tilted into Bing Air's embrace, and he was almost exhausted. At this moment, it was difficult for him to even stand straight. A large group of people lay in a row on the walls and looked at Yuanshi. It's nothing. I just suddenly have this feeling. Yuanshi scratched his head and sighed. Although the divine realm is chaotic, as long as you have power, you can survive. The world is vast, and even if you offend a powerful force, you can still survive in another large region. However, in this world, in the world of Leviathan, we live in an unknown fear every day. Battles can break out at any moment. One second, we might be sleeping in bed, and the next second, fully armed and armed to the teeth on the battlefield. In this world, everyone is a warrior. Even if they fight side by side with their gods, the threat does not show any signs of stopping. Every day, we are still living in an abyss of suffering. Although living in an abyss of suffering is not the right word, we should say that we try to survive. If we stop, we will die, and the entire world will perish. Our throats are being choked at every moment. Life and death are never determined in the next second. Nightmare sighed faintly. It was rare that he did not go crazy. Instead, he stood very quietly to the side. Brother Yun, Brother Yun. Yuber threw herself into Yun Nuoxing's arms and hugged him. She looked up and gave him a silly smile. Little Moon also walked by and looked at her cheeky little sister who was making a fuss in his arms. She shook her head helplessly. Yuber said that although this world is fun, it is also very depressing. Yun Nuoxing rubbed the head of the little girl who treated him like an older sister and would not take the initiative to act coquettishly. He rubbed his face against Yuer's round face and said, "There is nothing we can do about it. I also want to solve the problem here as soon as possible, but there is almost no loophole that can be exploited by the first heavenly god suppression of those who have crossed over from the divine realm to the lower realm. I'm afraid it will take some time to solve the problem of this galaxy. You can't even use the power of the heavenly gods." Chu Yingzhan asked. Yin Nuoxing and Zero shook their heads together. The latter sighed and said, "Although the twin divine contract can activate the power of the heavenly gods, we can't use it to fight in that state. The power we have left here is only at the level of the heavenly gods' rule power. It can make a small adjustment to the rule power of the five elements realm. However, if we want to get rid of these void beasts that are not from the five elements realm, we still have to do it ourselves. They have reproduced in this world for tens of millions of years. It has been a long time since the fragments were expelled from the world of the Star Origin continent. They have built a nest on this planet and spread their power. The void beasts are all life forms that are the manifestation of the power of the fragments. They have low intelligence and can even be called retarded. They have no other thoughts in their minds except for smashing, burning, and plundering. However, there are too many of them. Yin Nuoxing also had a headache. The power that you have seen today is already the limit. Because of the suppression of the rule power, it is difficult to take another step forward. How long do you think it will take for me to get rid of all the void beasts in this galaxy? Well, everyone was a little dizzy. Things will get better. You're not fighting alone. Yin walked to his side lightly and smiled at him. Yin Nuoxing nodded. Yes, I am not alone. Hey, idiot number one likes to pretend to be worried. Why do you think so much? Everything will work out when it comes to it. If you have time to think about these things, why don't you? Well, look, Ivan and the others are in a hurry. It seems that they have something to do. Zero was halfway through his lecture when he saw something out of the corner of his eye. He extended his hand and pointed. Everyone turned their attention to the direction of his finger. Then they saw Ivan and a few others with golden lights flashing as they hurriedly walked towards the conference hall that they had been in not long ago. Let's go and take a look, Yin Nuoxing said softly. Bing Air nodded knowingly and flew up with him in her arms. Everyone followed behind them. The place was still the same, that ridiculously spacious resting room. The door was still half closed. The group of people from Yin Nuo planet did not avoid anything. Pushing the door open with a palm, the group of people filed in, giving Yi Fan and the others a shock. As soon as they entered, they saw a complicated magic circle on the table. There were many strange golden symbols that looked like runes extending from the magic circle. They landed on the ground and extended to the wall. The whole magic circle was shining with a holy golden light. It looked very holy. However, in this holy light, there was a trace of a strange black aura. Everyone was familiar with this aura. More than an hour ago, they were still fighting against this aura on the battlefield. At the center of the array that covered half of the room, there was a person lying down. The first thing that came into view was a large white beard. It was a very old man, and his beard almost reached his legs. He was wearing a white divine robe with golden edges. His shoulders and kneecaps were covered with sturdy armor. The wide divine robe covered his thin and small body. His face was thin and slightly pale, and his lips were so white that there was almost no color. Yin Nuashing and the others had just seen him on the battlefield. It was said that he was the Pope of Ivan's church, the supreme ruler of the Holy Kingdom. The Bloodwing Fortress was the most popular place among the 6 fortresses, so its defense was naturally stronger. This Pope was also fighting side by side with God. Yin Nuashing and the others just found out that the Pope was actually more than 10,000 years old. The normal lifespan of a human in the Leviathan world was more than 100 years old. Warriors and others who cultivated spiritual energy could live up to thousands of years old. No matter how they counted, this Pope had already exceeded the normal lifespan limit. However, unlike the dying appearance that everyone saw, the Pope was shouting the name of God on the battlefield while waving the 1,000-pound hammer in his hand like the wind. At that time, everyone thought that they had seen a hot-blooded little old man. After a while, they saw him lying on the table. "Oh, you're here." When Ivan saw Yin Nuashing and the others, he was stunned for a moment. He waved his hand and motioned for everyone to close the door. Then, he gently lifted a corner of the Pope's robe, exposing the source of the black presence to everyone. On the Pope's left shoulder, there was a strange symbol the size of a palm. It was a black rune that kept flashing with red light. Every time the red light flashed, it looked like a rhythmic breathing. It looked very scary. At the same time, the rune was emitting a faint black presence. The chaotic presence made everyone's expression turn solemn. "Is he possessed?" Zero was stunned. She whispered in the soul. Although I had guessed it before, I was very curious when the astral spirit and the others told me. The dark element doesn't have any special power to possess. It's only specialized in destruction. This child's soul is stubbornly resisting its invasion. Ivan nodded and sighed heavily. A handsome young man was talking to an old man about a child. This scene caused everyone's cheeks to twitch. Although they all knew that the spirit race had an eternal lifespan and that Ivan's age was actually a little frighteningly old, they still felt that this scene was a little strange. Fortunately, everyone's ability to accept things was strong enough to quickly overlook this point. There's no way to get rid of it. Seeing Ivan and the others' serious expressions, the elemental spirit couldn't help but ask. "Sigh." Ivan sighed heavily and shook his head. "It's too late. This child doesn't even know when he encountered it. If only his body was invaded, it would be fine if he was destroyed and reborn. But now it has touched his soul. There's nothing we can do." Ozier's pretty face turned gloomy. Yin Nuashing and Zero thought for a while. The two of them exchanged a few glances and glanced at the palm-sized black rune a few times. In the end, they both nodded. Ozier coughed softly and said, "Well, we can deal with this thing." When his voice fell, everyone felt the room instantly fall silent. When they raised their heads, they saw Ivan and the other 4 staring at Zero with wide eyes. After a moment of silence, Ivan opened his mouth wide in astonishment. "What?" Zero staggered and said, "So you held back for 5 minutes just to say Oh no. Actually, well, you said that you can get rid of it." Ivan's face was full of suspicion. Yin Nuashing and the others had never encountered this thing before. If they suddenly jumped out and said that they could deal with it, no one would believe them. This thing's resistance to the power of time isn't just a little bit. We tried to rewind time, but it didn't work. In the end, we had no choice but to destroy the body and create a new one. But now we're touching the soul. Ivan's expression was solemn as he reminded Zero that the power of time wouldn't work. "Ahem, it's complicated. I can feel that I have a way to deal with this thing. It's a feeling, you know? It's a sudden and inexplicable feeling." Zero spread out his hands. This matter was as long as a piece of cloth. It was not the time to tell them everything, so he could only find some lame excuses to fool them. Ivan and the others looked at each other strangely. Ivan scratched his head and stepped aside. He said, "Then you can go and try. Anyway, this child is waiting for death. Since you said that you have a way, just give it a try. If it doesn't work, I will hold a god's burial. I have to let the child die with dignity. Is there anything I can help you with?" Osier asked. Zero thought for a moment, waved his hand, and said, "It's nothing. Maybe the scene is a little bloody. If you can't bear to watch, just turn your head away." Ivan swallowed his saliva and said, "Then I'll just keep an eye on it." Zero shrugged and walked to the front of the Pope. He took a deep breath and covered his palm with a layer of yellow film. Then, under everyone's nervous gaze, he suddenly inserted his hand into the rune. Poof! The sound of flesh being penetrated made everyone grimace and their cheeks twitch. Yinuashing could not help but roll her eyes. It sounded painful. Ivan saw Zero's serious face and did not say anything to disturb him. He just watched nervously. When the palm was inserted into the black rune on the Pope's shoulder, it did not really penetrate the body because there was no blood. The palm went directly into the Pope's soul. If it were the spirit of the starry sky and the others, they would only be slightly possessed. In that case, it would be easy to grab the emitted black fog, twist it into a ball with power, and then pull it out. It was like pulling out a thorn. However, the Pope's soul was eroded. This thorn had turned into a barb. To pull it out, one would have to dig out a whole piece of flesh. This was the current situation. The black fog was entangled in the Pope's soul. In order to pull it out, one would need to use some special means. After that, the Pope's soul would be weakened. This was something that Osier and the others could easily treat. With a soft sound, everyone saw that the black fog entangled on the Pope's shoulder and the whole demonic black rune were suddenly peeled off by Zero and flew into the magic circle. Without a host, the black fog was quickly purified by the infinite divine power. Zero felt that this was already light enough. However, the people who had watched the whole process were all grimacing. They could not bear to look at it directly, as if they were the ones who had just been dug out. The Pope's soul is slightly damaged. That's good. I'll leave the rest to you. It's fine now. Zero waved and smiled. Osier came back to her senses and quickly went forward to take a look. Then she began to heal the Pope's slightly damaged soul. Ivan looked at his Pope and found that he was fine. His expression suddenly became strange. "How did you do it?" "I don't know. I just felt that it was a needle with a barb. I just removed it." Zero scratched his head puzzledly and looked at Ivan. "I thought you would know." Seeing that Zero was even more confused than him, Ivan did not know whether to laugh or cry. "This matter has been troubling us for a long time, and we have not been able to solve it. If we touch it directly, even we will be corroded. So, no one has done such a risky thing." It's a strange intuition. I don't recommend you to try it. Maybe it's because of your power of time." Ivan pondered for a long time, but he still could not figure out what was going on. The people who knew could only roll their eyes and pretend that they did not know. To hell with the power of time. This black thing was fundamentally something that belonged to these two guys. If they could not remove it, no one in the world could dispel it. After the black fog disappeared, the Pope's face slowly returned to normal. The damage to his soul had been healed by Osier. The rest of the injuries would be dealt with in a while. Yinuashing and the others felt that everything was fine now, so they did not block the way and quietly left the room. Speaking of rest, Yinuashing himself had not recovered yet. At this time, he still looked like a frosted eggplant. His eyelids were trembling, and people were worried that he would not be able to get up if he took a wrong step. "I think we should go to the back of the Leviathan and have a look," Yinuashing said calmly. Everyone turned pale with fright. Binger stumbled and almost fell to the ground with him. Everyone looked at him as if they had seen a ghost. In the end, this suggestion was rejected by everyone. They all said that if he showed any signs of moving, they would punch him to the ground. After that, Yinuashing did not say anything. Binger on the left and Xinyan on the right, Little Moon and you were on the front and back, pulled and pushed him. The four girls threw him onto the bed like a dismembered corpse. When they saw him peacefully close his eyes and fall asleep quietly, they wiped away their cold sweat. They were really afraid that this guy would rush to the back of the Leviathan. He had the ability to move. Fortunately, Yinuashing was a little weak at this time. Otherwise, they probably could not do anything to him. Chapter 873. The world of Livian did not have the 24 hours a day that everyone was familiar with, nor did it have the strange time on the celestial continent. It had a more uniform 36 hours a day, where day and night were almost the same, and the nights were quite long. There were a few thumb-sized orbs hanging in the sky, but they were too small to be called moons. They were the other planets in the system, and could be seen at night in Livian. However, they were very far away from each other and could not be seen with the naked eye. It was only after Ivan and the others explained that everyone understood why the planets were so close to each other. The black fog released by the void beasts will block the spiritual communication between us Eldars, making it difficult to communicate between planets. Even in the Leviathan world, we have to spread spiritual energy over a large area through the spiritual energy towers to communicate between the 6 fortresses. It's even more difficult to communicate between planets. If we don't think of a way to reduce the visual distance, we won't even know when a planet will fall. Sigh. I've never tried the Eldar's ability to be so limited that we can't communicate and can only use this method to see. By the way, this visual distance of the planets is real. I've used my divine title to erase the delay caused by the speed of light between these planets. Anyway, it's fine as long as you understand what I mean. Everyone nodded in confusion as they listened to Ivan's long-winded explanation. They understood the reason, but only to a certain extent. At night, the Bloodwing stronghold was still as busy as usual. The inner walls were slightly slower in repairing, while the outer walls that had collapsed had already been repaired before the battle started. At this moment, there were 2 more watchtowers hanging on the walls. They were stone towers that were a few meters higher than the walls and were built with circles of silver-white stone bricks. There was a door on the walls that led to the top. At this moment, there were already some spirit guides that were suitable for long-distance scouting standing on the watchtowers. Their hawk-like sharp gazes were looking at the plains in the distance. Their eyes were emitting a faint radiance, as if they had cast some kind of vision-related magic on themselves. Once they discovered something, the alarm would immediately spread out. So serious. Yuanshi was holding his head in his hands and slowly strolling on the undamaged walls. Beside him were Ivan, Nightmare, and a few other men. Half of the girls stayed with Yin Nuashing, while Chu Yingzhan was bored and took Osier and Cynthia for a stroll. There were patrolling soldiers everywhere on the walls. When they saw them coming, they would salute them and slam their fists on the ground. Yuanshi felt the pain for them. Ivan, who was beside him, would smile back and sigh in his mind. War has invaded this world for tens of millions of years. Those who had lived through the era of peace have faded away with time. The people of this generation, other than maintaining their own beliefs, are fighting. Fortunately, some of the customs of the Leviathan world have been preserved, and not all that is left is fighting. I quite like this world. I used to like the customs, the people, and the peace here very much. Ivan let out a long sigh, then smiled and said, "So no matter what, we will return peace to this world. Not just Livian, but Gray and Murray's beside it. Those planets will also be better. If the war of 10 million years can't be resolved, then 100 million years will be. One day, we will be able to resolve it." There was endless fighting spirit in his words. Yuanshi and the others could not help but smile. After a while, they turned around and looked at Zero and rolled their eyes. Zero was especially helpless. Half of this matter was related to him and Yin Nuashing. Dong! Dong! A melodious and solemn bell suddenly rang in the Bloodwing fortress. Yuanshi and the others were stunned. They turned their heads and saw what happened in the Bloodwing fortress. The flames in the Bloodwing fortress suddenly extinguished at the same time. The surroundings suddenly became pitch black. Yuanshi and the others subconsciously thought that something unexpected happened and adjusted their bodies to battle mode. Ivan smiled and stopped them. He smiled and said, "Don't be so excited. Look." He stretched out his hand and pointed at the 4 streets of the Bloodwing fortress. On both sides of the streets, the lampposts inlaid with spirit stones lit up again. Only these 4 important streets were lit. The lights were lit from the outside to the inside. The lights finally spread to the center of the fortress. There was a magnificent church there. The lights led everyone's eyes to the magnificent church. In the dark night, the faint lights made the surroundings slightly hazy. The dim light brought warmth to everyone. The church emitted a faint holy light, like a bright lamp in the night. It was incomparably sacred. Everyone in the fortress, including the city guards, clenched their fists and placed them on their shoulders. They bowed deeply to the church with a solemn and respectful expression. The lights seemed to have lit up the 4 longest streets. Looking at the solemn expressions on the faces of the surrounding soldiers and the people below, Yuan Shi and the others couldn't help but think of the word pilgrimage in their minds. It's a custom left by the children. At the 4th hour of the night, they pray to their God and deliver the gospel. This scene is actually very common in Leviathan's world. Every time, it would last for 10 minutes. Well, that was a long time ago. Now, it only lasts for 1 minute every night. There's nothing we can do about the special situation during wartime. A lot can happen in 1 minute. This is also one of the few customs left in this devastated world. Ivan sighed deeply. Yuanshi felt that the atmosphere was a bit heavy. He rolled his eyes and said, "How's your Pope?" "He's fine." Ivan was stunned for a moment. Then he smiled and said, "He's fine." After Zero dug out the power of the Void Beast, he's much more energetic. The child will be completely healed tomorrow. The pilgrimage at night soon ended. It lasted for only 1 minute. The lights in the Bloodwing fortress were lit up again. Everyone in the fortress returned to their own places and did what they were supposed to do. The few soul shooters on the watchtower were still keeping their eyes wide open and watching the movements in the plains. Speaking of which, you guys have been fighting the Void Beast for tens of millions of years. Haven't you found any weaknesses? Yuanshi turned his head and said, "It's a big problem for the general class big guys to rush to the front of the fortress, isn't it?" Ivan nodded. The small Void Beasts were just cannon fodder. Even the general class Void Beasts were no exception. Their only purpose was to let the mountain-like Void Beasts rush to the front of the fortress and destroy it with one slap. The smaller Void Beasts would be able to rush into the fortress and slaughter them. If the fortress was completely destroyed and the Void Beasts were not killed, when the Void Beasts rushed into the plains and mountains behind the fortress, the Leviathan world's army would basically be annihilated. The power of the Void Beasts is chaotic and disorderly. There is no common point. Sometimes, the Void Beasts on the left and right side use different forms of power. Naturally, there is no pattern and there is no weakness. The only thing we know is that if they rush to the front of the fortress and let one of them in, the rest will be finished. Ivan pointed to the other side of the fortress. We've tried it before, but we missed one and let it rush to the plains behind us. At that time, the war was intense, and there were battles almost every day. No one cared where that one went. Besides, a Void Beast is only slightly stronger than an elite warrior. Guess what happened in the end? Yuan Shi and the others pondered for a moment before shaking their heads. Only then did Ivan grin and say, "Half a month later, a wave of Void Beasts came charging from the inner region, numbering in the tens of thousands. There were also many junior generals among them. They attacked the Bloodwing fortress from both sides. That was the most difficult battle in history. The Bloodwing fortress almost fell. They can split or self-replicate." Yuan Shi opened his mouth. His voice was a little bitter. Something like that. "You don't want to know the details." Ivan's cheeks trembled. He said gloomily, "It was like using itself as a hotbed. It spurted out, or like squeezing out pimples, it burst out black mucus. It stuck to the cave and the ground. It condensed into small bodies on the ground. Like rolling mud, it became bigger and bigger. Then it became a new Void Beast. And it was a batch of, I want to say snuffers." "Stop it," Yuan Shi and the others roared. "After witnessing the whole process, your mind has become twisted." "Oh, it's disgusting. Don't let me remember." Ivan's handsome face was slightly dark. A few veins could be seen on his forehead. Everyone was speechless. "You have completely remembered it, haven't you? Well, this Void Beast is a product that does not belong to this world. This is the most important conclusion." Ivan sighed. "When I say that it does not belong to this world, I don't mean that it does not belong to this star system, nor does it not belong to this star world. It does not belong to this void. It is not a creature born in this void. Yuan Shi and the others were stunned. Their hearts skipped a beat. Zero was a little calmer. Why do you say that? Let's put it this way. When we Eldars create a world, the Creator will put a stamp on it. It is used to say, "This is my creation," like a declaration of sovereignty. Yuan Shi nodded. Something like that. Ivan glanced at him, nodded, and continued. Then, everything that is born in this world, not only life but also planets and stars, will hide the aura of this world in places that can't be seen. This is somewhat related to that poke. Things that are born from the sovereign stamp will have a stamp on them. This means that they're second-class derivatives of the owner of the stamp. Nightmare crossed her arms and nodded. You can say that. Ivan glanced at them in surprise, then continued. Similarly, any life form born from this void would also have the presence of this void. The power of the primordial realm of the 8 elements realm is temporarily lurking in the depths of our souls and will not move. This is the ability of intelligent life forms like us to adjust their own life form, thus avoiding the danger of explosions caused by friction between the various powers of the primordial realm. As for those fragments, without their own intelligence, they would not have such micro-adjustments. These void beasts are the derivatives of the energy leaked out from the fragments. So even if they have intelligence, they would not have such a function. It is very troublesome to explain the actual situation. Anyway, as you all know, the void beasts do not have the aura of the 8 elements realm or the 5 elements realm on them, because they are not life forms in the conventional sense, but just energy, so the power of the primordial realm that should appear on all individuals will not touch them. So the things thrown down by the 8 element realm are all high-risk items. Yuan Shi's cheeks twitched. And that void beast, it doesn't have the presence of this void? Zero tilted her head and asked. Ivan nodded and frowned slightly. This is a very strange thing. It makes us wonder if there is another void in this world. If there is, where is it? How is that void connected to our void? How did the void beast come here? Can we go there? Is there any exchange of information? Is that void also structured according to the world structure? If not, what is that void like? What form are the life forms there? Are they all void beasts? Or is it actually similar to our void, and the void beast is just a special race? Are there only 2 voids? Or are there more voids that have not been discovered? Yuan Shi and the others listened to his speculations and felt a little ashamed. They who knew the truth could only keep quiet and pretend that they did not know anything. Oh, they also had to pretend to be shocked, so that others would not notice any clues. In fact, Zero was indeed a little surprised. There were countless people in the vast thousand worlds. Except for the people of the 8 element realm, very few people in the other primordial realms, even the Protoss, could realize that the world they were in, the entire void they were in, was actually just a part of a bigger world, a part of the greater Yuan realm. This fact was nothing special to the people of the 8 element realm, but for those who regarded the 5 element realms or other primordial realms as their entire world, it was a very bold idea. This idea that challenged everyone, including their current understanding of the world, required a lot of courage to be born. The appearance of the void beast was an opportunity and also a piece of evidence that allowed Ivan to make a bold conjecture. He didn't waste too much time from his birth to confirmation. He believed that there was more than one void in this world. And in fact, this was the truth. If there was more evidence, the large group of people around him were all evidence. This news has been reported to the heavenly court. Don't listen to the impressive name. It's actually just an intelligence hall surrounded by a group of old men from the spirit race. The extremely handsome guy curled his lips and said, "It will probably take a while to deal with it." A while? Yuan Shi sensed that something was wrong. How long is a while? Not long. Ivan scratched his head. About 100 million years. There are still more than 50 million years before the preliminary arrangement is completed. The air was silent for a moment. Yuan Shi and the others widened their eyes. Immortals can also be said to be long-lived species, the kind that is almost immortal, no matter how many primordial realms the god race, Almost all of them are immortals. They won't die without special circumstances. 100 million years is indeed a while. You guys have to calm down. Look, I've lived for more than 60 eras, and idiot number 1 has reincarnated billions of times. If you guys can become god emperors and deities in the future, you'll get used to this concept of time sooner or later. 0 smiled faintly in their souls. We're different. Everyone was furious. Who the hell would treat 100 million years as a while? Don't treat 100 million years as nothing, okay? Are you scared? Oh, I forgot that you guys are still quite young. Xiao smiled kindly and said, don't look at us like that. We've lived for billions of years. To be able to join the dangerous battle formation, we all need a long period of combat experience. We're the first battle echelon of the spirit realm. Those who join this echelon are all energetic and hot-blooded young people. Yuan Shi and the others couldn't help but choke. Billions of years, young. What were they? The two young. In these two sentences shouldn't mean the same thing, right? They looked at Ivan and the others who were laughing and couldn't help but roll their eyes. In another place, there was an ocean of flames. Light purple, crimson pink, brown, light black, and light grayish-blue flames were connected together like a colorful ocean. In the ocean, there was a relatively large floating island. Although it was called a floating island, the island was formed by solidified flames. It was very stable on the surface of the ocean of flames. Several buildings on the island showed completely different colors, and they were very colorful. In the sky above this only island, there was a small sun. It was a small crimson sun. If one looked carefully through the layer of light, one could see that there was actually a light cocoon about 3 meters in size inside. Exuberant vitality came from the light cocoon, and along with the sunlight, it shone on the island below. At this time, in the building below, there was a pavilion that looked like a courtyard, but there was a big silk bed next to it. 2 or 3 meters away, there was a tea table and a few chairs. At this time, on the big bed, there was a beautiful figure with a standard, delicate, oval face. Her slender legs were crossed. Her elbows were on her legs. Her chin was on the back of her hand, and the corners of her mouth were curved in a happy arc. Her light purple eyes carried a trace of inexplicable and mysterious charm as she looked at the chair less than 2 meters away. On the chair was Yun Nuoxing, who was sitting restlessly. On the chairs next to her sat Ming, Kai Xia, Lan Xan and Yishi. The Netherworld Ruins sword was hanging on the chair, and Little White was lying on Ming's head, looking at Yun Nuoxing in the middle. The gazes of the 5 people, 1 beast, and 1 sword gave her a huge sense of oppression, as if she was being watched from all directions. Yun Nuoxing was a little confused, and her expression was a little innocent. When she used the 1,000 Dreams Sutra to sleep, she just happened to feel that Ming had woken up, so she came in to take a look. How did it become like this in the blink of an eye? Well, she admitted that she had been avoiding entering her soul world. What Zero said at that time, he was not the only one who heard it, but also the girls in her soul and Little White. She thought that she should leave some time for Zai to recover. When she came to the 5 Elements realm, her soul had already recovered, but she didn't jump in immediately until now. Now, it seemed that she couldn't avoid it anymore. Cough. Yun Nuoxing coughed heavily, raised her eyes stiffly, took a deep breath, looked at the light purple eyes, and said with a dry smile, well, Zai, if you have something to say, just say it. The night is long, and you shouldn't drag it out like this, right? Oh. Zai tilted her head, smiled seductively, and said, then, little star? Oh, and what do you want to say? Yun Nuoxing shuddered, and when the latter name came out, he also broke out in a cold sweat. A feeling of impending doom descended on him, and he couldn't help but shudder. After shuddering for a long time, Yun Nuoxing saw that Zai's eyes didn't change at all, so she gave up trying to avoid it. She sighed and scratched her head. You know, I'm not him. Although it's half a past. I don't know how many past lives, but at least I'm not him now, so... Yun Nuoxing raised her eyebrows and looked straight at her. So you can't kill me with your eyes like this, tisk. Zai rolled his eyes, sat up straight, and sighed. Mei Mao glanced at him. But you'll recover your memories sooner or later, won't you? Sooner or later, you'll get your memories back. You'll be becoming, quarter moon, or at least half of your body. Yin Nuashing was stunned, and her pretty face turned slightly pale. Then, it doesn't make a difference whether it's earlier or later. Zai grinned and pounced on Yin Nuashing, who didn't react in time. Don't! Yin Nuashing's face instantly turned pale when she saw a figure pouncing on her. She couldn't escape in time and was pressed to the ground. Zai's claws moved like the wind, and he scratched the former's head with all his might and said with a smile, "Now, let's calculate in advance. You said that I've sealed the debt for almost 60 years?" Yin Nuashing howled and cried bitterly. "You said that you won't hold it against me." "Ugh, save me. That's what you said, but it's hard to actually do it. 60 years, 60 years." Xiaobai watched the show from the side and made sarcastic remarks, which directly provoked Zai to hit even harder. "But I didn't know anything about this. I won't take the blame. I won't." Yin Nuashing roared, and like a serf who had been suppressed for decades, she threw Zai onto the bed and took the opportunity to sit on the chair to catch her breath. At the same time, she grabbed a chair from the side and held it in front of her and bared her teeth at Zai. "Don't come over. I'm very powerful. I'm really very powerful. Even I'm scared when I fight." "You're scared that I'll eat you?" Zai got up from the bed and rolled her eyes at Zai, who was not far away. Yin Nuashing thought seriously for a while, and then nodded seriously, causing Zai to fall on the bed. After a while, she glared at him bitterly. Seeing this, Xiaobai stretched, jumped down from Ming's head, and slowly crawled to the side. Since the matter had developed to this point, it was considered to be over. Everyone understood, so they stopped watching Yin Nuashing's inhumane behavior and slipped to the side. Lan Xiner and Kai Xia continued to play chess, while Yishi sat at the side and watched the two play chess. Ming pounced on Yin Nuashing, and his grin made the latter feel a little helpless. Zai snorted and grabbed the blanket with her jade-like hands, rolling herself up like a spring roll. She tucked her head under the blanket and didn't say anything. Everyone glanced at her and didn't say anything. In fact, if Yin Nuashing hadn't accidentally entered tonight, everyone had planned to drag it out a little longer. When she heard Zero say that Yin Nuashing was the Shadow Emperor, Zai immediately rolled under the bed and didn't crawl out for a long time. Everyone knew that her emotions were complicated. Tonight, she had pulled Yin Nuashing over by luck and asked him to help her out. However, it seemed that the effect wasn't ideal. There was only one point to it, and that was that Zai still had to untie the knot in her heart. In fact, it was not a particularly big knot in her heart. It was just that she had been sealed for nearly 60 eras, and she knew that the person who sealed her was already dead. She was also told to look for a person she had never seen before, and so on. Then, one day, she suddenly realized that the person she had followed by accident was the person she was looking for, and in fact, that person was herself. The resentment, grievance, and confusion that had been sealed for a long time erupted like a child throwing a tantrum. Then there was this scene tonight. Chapter 874. On the other hand, Violet Knight was still gloomy by himself, and Yin Nuashing had already prepared himself for a long talk that night, but it ended after a while. As expected, Violet Knight's nerves were really strong. She didn't need him to ask her anything, and she was done with being gloomy by herself. Violet Knight reckoned that if it were any other girl, she would have to talk about everything from childhood to adulthood, from ancient times to the future, from dating to the future, and from the future of the realm of the gods. As for why she thought of all that, even Yin Nuashing didn't know. That was all she talked about with Yuer for the whole night, and the direction of the conversation was really unpredictable. "Ming, are you all right now?" Sitting in a corner of the courtyard, Yin Nuashing looked up at the starry sky that was created using several types of divine flames in the soul realm. In his arms was a girl who seemed to be an angel that was glowing all over. When the latter heard his question, she looked up and smiled softly. Wrapping Yin Nuashing with her wings, she nodded and said, "I'm fine now. Don't worry, big brother." "Oh, then what happened back then?" Yin Nuashing asked, lowering his head in confusion. At that time, Ming paused for a moment and the expression on her pretty face was a little strange. Her golden eyes stared at Yun Nuashing. It seems that when I collided with Liv Lei, my consciousness was knocked away. Yun Nuashing. That's what it felt like. With a crash, I felt like the world was spinning as if I was thrown out. When I opened my eyes, I was already there. Ming gestured with both hands and said, "Fortunately, it was only my consciousness that was thrown out. If it was my soul that flew out, I don't think it would be that easy to come back." Hearing that, Yun Nuashing's heart skipped a beat. He thought of the gigantic void beast that he saw in the image. It was 1,000 feet long, and its body was wrapped in chains. However, those chains were used to shackle a person in its abdomen. At present, he only knew that the person was a young man. Other than that, there was no other information. He was worried that Ming might have fallen for it. "Don't worry, big brother. I wasn't stopped when I came back. My consciousness was just a very weak ball of consciousness. In that turbid place, it was hard to notice. It took me some effort to get out. On that planet, aside from the quiet space inside, there was a very strong wind blowing on the surface. The wind was as chaotic as a tsunami, and it could circle the planet once in a few minutes. I was swept up in the wind and circled the planet dozens of times before I could barely get out. After that, nothing much happened. I drifted slowly through the stars and came back," Ming said. Yin Nuashing was horrified. This experience was quite miraculous. He had never heard of anyone's consciousness being knocked out. At the very least, humans shouldn't have such an experience. If someone was knocked out, it should be the soul or the entire spiritual body that was knocked out. Only a consciousness was knocked out. That was probably a special talent of energy life forms like the angels. "Big brother, this on my head is..." Ming rubbed the mark that appeared on her forehead and looked at him in confusion. When her consciousness left, she didn't know what happened to her body. When she came back, she felt that there was an additional mark on her forehead. She could feel Yun Nuashing's power contained in her forehead. It was very powerful, many times more powerful than any energy she had ever seen. However, she didn't know what this mark was for. It's nothing. It's just a little thing. A little thing for protection. You can treat it as a talisman." Yin Nuashing was stunned. He scratched his head and laughed. His gaze shifted to the side, and he felt a little guilty for some reason. Ming couldn't believe this kind of suspicious statement and flickering gaze no matter how much he wanted to believe it. His delicate eyebrows couldn't help but twitch. Just as he was about to turn his head, he heard Yishi's voice from the other side. "God's life oath." Big Brother Nua didn't know what happened at that time. He was worried that something would happen to you, so he made this for you. I don't know the details, but it's a God's oath. Anyway, if something happens to you, Big Brother Nua will instantly appear in front of you to block the death calamity for you. Xiaoshi, Yin Nuashing panicked. He suddenly felt a headache. He didn't want Ming to know. If he knew, he would usually, in the spiritual world that was filled with a sea of fire, the temperature suddenly dropped to freezing point. Ming sighed softly. Mei Mao looked at Yin Nuashing faintly. She reached out her jade finger and poked his head. She said softly, "Big brother, let's talk when we have time." The corners of Yin Nuashing's mouth twitched. He only felt extremely bitter in his heart. Yes, she had even changed the way she addressed him. Her gaze was clearly blaming him. He knew clearly what she was blaming him for. He shouldered everything by himself. He put on a brave front and took on everything by himself. He took on everything and carefully protected them behind him. Ming didn't think that this feeling of being protected was bad. However, they could also bear some of the burden. Most of the time, Yin Nuashing was forcing himself to keep moving forward. Even if he was powerless, he still had to protect them under his wings. In fact, they could also share some of the burden. That way, he wouldn't be in so much pain. He wouldn't have to go from small things to big things every time. Then, when something happened, everyone would worry at the side. It was fine if he fell asleep, but what about the others? Sometimes you have to consider other people's feelings when they worry about you. Stupid brother. Ming sighed in her heart. It was a pity that Yin Nuashing was a blockhead. This stupid brother of hers loved to worry. She knew that she wanted to correct him. However, When she thought about how Xian hadn't corrected him after being with him for so many years, she guessed that she wouldn't be able to do so either. This made her a little angry. While she was angry, she didn't know what to do. Yin Nuoxing scratched his head in distress. He didn't think that he had done anything wrong at that time. Suddenly, he felt a strong sense of crisis. Then, when he suddenly saw his sister wandering in that dangerous place, he hurriedly increased the level of invincible rule. He glanced at Yishi. At this time, Yishi was playing chess with Lan Xi and Er. She sensed something and turned her head back. When she saw Yin Nuoxing looking at her, she rolled her eyes at him and whispered, "Brother Nuoxing, don't blame me. I have to correct your suicidal thoughts properly before something happens to you in the future. You are not allowed to refute. There is no room for you to refute. You have no room to refute. You have committed suicide. You don't care about other people's lives, and you don't even care about your own life. You think about how ridiculous the word protection is in your heart, but you act faster than anyone else. Every time you risk your life." Seeing that he wanted to refute, Yishi glared at him fiercely and scolded him harshly. Yin Nuoxing shuddered and shrunk his head. He lowered his head and muttered, feeling wronged like a little wife who had been bullied. Yishi is right. You have to restrain your thoughts of looking down on life. Back then, it was exactly the same as you. He was inflexible and couldn't be corrected. I couldn't do anything to him. But now, Purple Night rolled up from the bed. She had been listening to the conversation just now. At this time, she suddenly laughed. "In the future, every time you do something like this, I will drag you into your soul and ravage you once." Yin Nuoxing immediately shuddered. He lay on the ground and shouted, "Kill me! What can I do?" My body moved on its own. Looking at him rolling on the ground like a child, the girls couldn't bear it. Xiaobai closed her eyes angrily and said, "Yu Ying is the same as you." When these words came out, the determination in the girls' hearts became much firmer. Kaixia couldn't help but say, "You idiot! In your previous life, even if you change your appearance every time, your temperament didn't change much." Yin Nuoxing didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "That's different. That's not me. That's not the same thing. That's you. That's the same thing." The girls roared, scaring Yin Nuoxing so much that he curled up into a ball and didn't make a sound. After that, Yin Nuoxing was punished by the girls to carve the words "Don't play with your life again" into his soul 100 times. Only then did they let him go. The 18 hours of night didn't pass very quickly. The sky was still very dark, and there was no moon in the sky. Only half of the dim yellow light in the Bloodwing Fortress was left hanging. Yin Nuoxing quickly regained consciousness. Although he hadn't recovered to his peak state, he was still very refreshed after sleeping. When he opened his eyes, he saw Qin Yin wiping his head with a handkerchief. Yin Nuoxing was slightly startled. This scene was a bit strange. "You're awake?" Qin Yin was also startled when she saw him open his eyes. After a while, she continued to wipe the sweat on his forehead with the handkerchief. Yin Nuoxing's eyebrows moved slightly and squeezed out a drop of sweat. Only then did he feel that his body was sticky. He felt as if he had just woken up from the water after sleeping. It was reasonable to say that the temperature at night in Leviathan wasn't high. That's not right. As a demi-demon, his cultivation shouldn't be affected by external factors. How could he be sweating while sleeping? You slept for 20 hours. There's still a while before dawn. After wiping the sweat on Yin Nuoxing's forehead, Qin Yin took back the handkerchief and sat down by the bed. She pointed to the side where Bing Air was lying on the edge of the bed and sleeping. Bing Air is using her own power to help you recover. She fell asleep 3 hours ago. You seem to have had a nightmare. You can't sleep well. Yin Nuoxing half propped himself up and saw that the bed was a bit messy because of him sleeping. When he heard Qin Yan's words, he was startled and asked doubtfully, "But I didn't fall asleep?" The Thousand Dreams Sutra was operating well. The nightmare didn't appear. Qin Yan shook her head to show that she didn't know either. "You just tossed around for a while and then stopped." Yin Nuoxing thought for a while and seemed to understand something. His face twitched slightly. It was probably because Z pounced on him and ravaged him that his body automatically resisted. Turning his head, he saw 3 little heads lying on the edge of the bed. It wasn't just Bing Air. Little Moon and Ewer were also guarding him. Ewer was still a bit naughty when she was sleeping. Her little hand pulled on his long hair and loosened it. She even mumbled in her sleep, "Whoa, Brother Yin, you big idiot. Yin nu washing. Who did I offend? I. Hearing his helpless muttering, Qin Yin turned her head and looked at him doubtfully. Yin Nuashing laughed bitterly and told her what had happened in the soul just now. After Qin Yin heard what he said, Mei Mao glanced at him and said indifferently, "Ming and Zi are right. You have to restrain those thoughts. If something happens to you, everyone will be worried. Even you. Sigh. Fine, I'll reflect on it. I'm guilty, but I can't control it. I really didn't. Sigh." Hearing this, Yin Nuashing could only scratch his head in distress. He really couldn't control this matter. His body, subconsciously, he didn't even have consciousness. It was simply a series of conditioned reflexes. Moreover, these kinds of actions were carved into his bones. "Because you're an idiot." Yin Nuashing was stunned. He turned his head in a daze. Qin Yin, who had just said this, was now staring at him expressionlessly. That exquisite, pretty face of hers rarely had any changes in expression. She had always been indifferent. When she said something that made him want to vomit blood, she was also indifferent. After looking at each other for so long, he couldn't help but look away, looking at each other without saying anything. Yin Nuashing awkwardly looked away and looked at the ceiling. Qin Yin also looked straight ahead silently. She looked at the dim yellow light outside the window. She was silent, and her breathing was very weak. She was like a jade carving. If she didn't open her mouth, no one would be able to sense her existence. They stared at the patterns on the wooden ceiling in a daze. The room was completely silent. After an unknown amount of time, Yin Nuashing came back to his senses. He took a deep breath and rolled off the bed. He gently carried the three girls, Bing Air and Little Moon, onto the bed. He tidied up his clothes and walked towards the door. "Where are you going?" Qin Yin asked softly. "Wow." The sudden sound from the room startled Yin Nuashing. He jumped up and turned around. When he saw Qin Yin sitting there and staring at him, he couldn't help but stare at her. "You're here." Qin Yin. "Huh? Hey, you're always so quiet. I can't sense your existence if I don't pay attention." Yin Nuashing scratched his head in embarrassment. Qin Yin was a little speechless. Yin Nuashing smiled and said, "Let's go out for a walk. Do you want to come?" Qin Yin thought for a while. Mei Mao blinked and nodded. She stood up and quietly walked to Yin Nuashing's side. Yin Nuashing smiled and pushed open the door. The two walked out side by side. There was still more than an hour until daybreak. Within the Bloodwing Fort, there were still some shops that were lit. Moreover, most of them were shops that sold armor and weapons. There were also some ordinary grocery stores. In the distance, there were also restaurants and tea houses. Dim yellow lights hung high above, illuminating the road below. Although it was called a fort, it was actually a city. However, the residents of this city were mostly powerful warriors and soldiers. Guarding this important border pass, everyone had to become a warrior that could instantly pick up a weapon and enter the battlefield. They didn't have any specific purpose for coming out to roam. The two walked side by side and wandered. There weren't many people on the street. Most of the people had gone back to rest at this time. The remaining people walking on the street were mostly powerful warriors. Nighttime didn't mean that it was safe. This kind of patrol was still very important. Ivan had said that the void beasts were used to appearing stealthily. No one would know when they would suddenly break into the stronghold. When those patrolling soldiers and shopkeepers saw Yin Nuashing and Yin Nuashing, they all stood up straight and bowed solemnly, which gave the two of them a fright. After the patrolling soldiers left, they couldn't help but ask a middle-aged uncle by the side of the road. You guys are..." The uncle's explanation made Yin Nuashing and Yin Nuashing speechless. When the meteor hit the ground, Ivan and the others had said that it was friend from outer space who had come to help. Yesterday's battle was seen by everyone. They subconsciously thought that they were friends of the gods. They were incomparably powerful. Thus, the scene just now had occurred, friends of the gods or something. Yin Nuashing didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This name was a little intimidating. Qin Yin smiled faintly and instantly restrained it. It was so fast that Yun Nuashing didn't catch it. He thought that this girl was just as indifferent and expressionless as before. Along the way, they attracted the attention of many people. The rate of people turning their heads was very high. However, there were only a dozen people on the street. After walking for a short distance, they saw another group of patrolling warriors trotting across the street. When they came in front of Yun Nuashing and Yun Nuashing, they also stopped in an orderly manner. They smashed their fists together, saluted, and hurriedly ran past. The security was so tight that one could feel that this was a stronghold. The shops on the street were obviously more weapon shops. Among the weapons in these shops, only a few of the 18 types of weapons that Yun Nuashing could recognize appeared here. He couldn't recognize the other strange weapons. What surprised him was that these weapons didn't cost any money. They were free. This is the grace of the gods. The natural resources of Leviathan were already exhausted in the first era of the Holy War. It is the grace of the gods that we can still replenish our resources at this time. The shop owner was a rather young man. When he saw Yun Nuashing and Yun Nuashing, he immediately recognized that they were friends of the gods. He saluted them and then freed one of his hands. Wisps of silver light flashed across his body and finally traveled along his arm to his palm. A moment later, the silver light emerged from his palm and turned into a ball of light. After a while, it condensed into the shape of a weapon. When the light dissipated, a solid weapon with a metallic luster appeared out of thin air. The quality is okay. The shop owner casually looked at it and then put it on the counter. He looked at Yun Nuashing and smiled. The gods taught us how to create resources out of thin air. Everything that we created was used in the Holy War. Weapons, food, city defense, these were all brought by the gods when they descended. We also threw everything into the Holy War according to the will of the gods. Did Ivan and the others say that? No. Every action of the gods has its own meaning. These are just our wild guesses. Yun Nuashing and Qin Yin were speechless. The Holy War has lasted for a long time and has never ended. We also don't know when it will end. The enemies of the gods are very powerful. Even the gods have fallen. We are not willing to just linger on under the protection of the gods. Everyone wants to contribute. Those who can go to the battlefield will go out and kill the enemies. Those who are not strong enough will go to the rear to create resources to support the warriors and the gods on the front line. The shopkeeper took a deep breath and looked up at the sky. When will it end? That was everyone's initial thought. Later, this thought was also forgotten by time. It's already a blessing to be alive. Even if we die in battle tomorrow, we won't have any regrets. This world has been going on for far too long. It will end. All of this will end. Yun Nuashing smiled. The shop owner smiled and bowed to Yun Nuashing. Thank you for your kind words. After leaving the weapon shop, Yun Nuashing and the other man continued to wander around this otherworldly street. The area in front of them was dark, and the lights did not illuminate the area too brightly. Yun Nuashing thought for a moment, and then turned to another street. They did not have any particular destination, and were just strolling around. They were curious about the local products here, and they even had the leisure to pick out those shiny little accessories. It was said that they had some special effects, but Yun Nuashing and the other man did not really care about those effects. They only bought them because they felt that these shiny little things looked pretty good. Unsurprisingly, these did not cost money. Yun Nuashing and the other man did not really care about that effect. The Holy War? Well, it's not that I can't understand such a special period. I'm just a little curious. What will happen if the Holy War ends? Yun Nuashing could not help but think. Yun Nuashing bought a pendant for Qin Yin. It was made of a metal chain called Ku in the Leviathan world. The chain was soft silver black, cold to the touch, and light to the touch. There was a golden hexagram hanging at the bottom of the chain. Visible energy flowed through the hexagram. It was said that it could be used to resist the power of the void beast. Qin Yin was a little stunned when she saw Yun Nuashing waving the pendant in front of her. Her pretty face seemed to be in a daze for a moment. She subconsciously raised her head. She wanted to say something, but it seemed like she was asking him to help her put the pendant on. When she realized that something was wrong and wanted to lower her head, Yin Nuashing had already smiled helplessly. He grabbed the pendant and put it around her neck. He did it so quickly that it took less than 2 seconds. Qin Yin looked down at the pendant hanging in front of her chest in a daze, and a faint smile appeared on her face. Then, she suddenly thought of something, and the smile quickly disappeared. She looked straight at him with her beautiful eyes and said, "I didn't expect you to be so skilled." Yin Nuashing scratched his cheek with his fingers and laughed dryly. "I usually wear for Xian, Feng and the others. I also have 2 hanging on my body. I'm used to it." "Oh." Qin Yin nodded casually and said, "Aren't you going to buy some for them?" "Yes, I'll buy them all. I'll buy whatever they like." Yin Nuashing smiled and patted the pendant on his chest. The atmosphere was inexplicably strange. Qin Yan's jade-like hand gently stroked a strand of hair. Her eyelids slightly lowered as she stared at the ground. Yin Nuashing scratched his head, feeling that something was wrong. Boom! A violent explosion resounded in the distance, causing the silent duo to be flabbergasted for a moment. They simultaneously raised their heads and saw a brilliant golden light blossoming in the distance, as if it wanted to illuminate this pitch-black night. A huge barrier had appeared outside the Bloodwing Fort. The golden barrier was frantically flickering, as if it would collapse at any moment. Behind the barrier was a boundless darkness. Chapter 875. Rumble, rumble. The earth shook as if it was trembling. The rumbling of the earthquake was accompanied by the rhythmic sounds of heavy objects smashing into the spiritual light barrier. Every time the spiritual light barrier flickered, it would cause the hearts of everyone in the Bloodwing Fort to tremble. There was also the sound of clanking chains echoing in the sky. Hearing this sound, Yin Nuashing and the others narrowed their eyes. "Chains! Don't tell me that big guy has come out?" Yin Nuashing's face twitched. That day, at the place where Ming's consciousness had stayed, he had seen a super void beast that was over 1,000 feet long. He wasn't sure how strong it was, but it shouldn't have been too difficult to kill a general-class void beast with a single slap. And that super void beast had a layer of chains around its abdomen, with a youth whose figure couldn't be seen clearly. Old. Boss, something big. Over at the city wall? Oh. A big guy has come out. Big guy. 100,000 flames. No, 1,000,000 flames urgent. Quickly come and save me. An earth-shattering howl came from Yin Nuashing's soul. It was like a demonic sound that penetrated his mind, startling him. However, after hearing this howl, Yin Nuashing judged that this guy could last for at least half an hour. Thus, he straightforwardly said, "Hold on, I'll be there soon." "That little star, a big guy has come out here. A very, very big guy. It's the one we saw yesterday. Walala, bang, dang, quang, rumble, wah, chains. They flew through the sky. The spirit light barrier has shattered. We have to go out and risk our lives. If any of you can escape, come and help us. Wah." Yin Nuashing hadn't moved yet when a series of clanging sounds came from his mind. He could barely determine that it was Yao Hua's voice, but it didn't sound like a situation was good. Just as Yin Nuashing wanted to see the situation of the others and was about to connect to their soul seeds, a cacophony of voices rushed into his mind. He was so scared that he hurriedly blocked it. Then he listened to them one by one and determined. Yes, something big had happened. There wasn't just one chain void beast. At least 6 of them had appeared. Moreover, it was as if they had agreed to sneak attack at night. This time it's really wow. Yin Nuashing's face twitched, and he patted his head. "Little Shi, Ziyi, Ming, Kai Xia Xin Air Xiao Bai. Stop sleeping. Something big has happened. Come out and help." As soon as he finished speaking, a large group of people popped out of his mind and stood to the side. Fortunately, after the city wall made a move, the people on the street had already rushed over. Otherwise, they would have been scared. Yi Shi, Ziyi, and the others still hadn't steadied themselves. After looking at each other, as if they had discussed it beforehand, They didn't even have time to say goodbye to Yun Nuashing before they all charged out with a bang. That speed and that efficiency gave him a fright. Yin Nuashing didn't waste any time. He exchanged a glance with Qin Yan, and the two of them nodded. He grabbed Qin Yan's hand, and with a flash of light, the two of them shot out and appeared on top of the city wall in the blink of an eye. Rumble! As soon as they appeared on the city wall, they were greeted by a huge black palm. The 5 fingers were like octopus tentacles without suction cups, and there was a huge hole in the center of the palm. From the hole, a huge black chain with a thickness of 30 meters burst out and whipped the golden barrier. Thunderous rumbles echoed, and the entire barrier shook under the attack, flickering continuously. Barrier of spiritual light, absolute defense. Everyone, pour all your power into the barrier. On the city wall, Yifan, Yuan Shi, and the others were desperately pouring their power into the barrier. Nearly 10 of the top powerhouses of the 5 elemental realms were supporting the barrier with their power, making its illusory figure a little more stable. But was only stable. Under the momentum of the giant void beast palm and chain, the barrier couldn't hold on for long. It was only a matter of time before it shattered. Motherf asterisk Kerr, have these beasts gone crazy? There has never been such a crazy offensive. 3 waves in a day, and even king-level powerhouses came out to ambush us. What is this? The extremely handsome guy couldn't help but curse. Even with his disheveled hair, he still had a different kind of handsomeness. You still have the strength to speak. That's good. Yifan revealed an extremely bitter smile. When he turned his head and saw Yun Nuashing appear, he couldn't help but be overjoyed. He hurriedly said, Yun, come and give me a hand. The barrier of spiritual light won't be able to hold on for long under the attacks of king-level powerhouses. We've already asked those who aren't strong enough to evacuate the stronghold. They rarely appear, but every time they do, we've never been able to protect our territory. If the 5 great spiritual gods were here, we could still give it a try, but now... Yin Nuashing waved her hand and interrupted him. After pondering for a while, she took a light breath and muttered, I didn't think that it would come in handy one day. It's worth a try, boss. Hurry up and throw out whatever you have. Ugh, we really can't hold on for much longer. Nightmare was sweating profusely, and the veins on his outstretched hands were bulging. Yin Nuashing nodded and made a lifting motion with her right hand. A golden light flickered, and something suddenly appeared on her palm. Everyone hurriedly turned their heads to look, and then their jaws dropped. Yuan Shi and the others knew what kind of godly weapon he was holding. When it came to defense, they would probably think of a shield or a barrier ball. However, what Yin Nuashing took out was something that looked like a sword, except that it was shaped like a sword. It was an object that was more than a foot long, and it was golden red in color. It floated on top of Yin Nuashing's palm. The top of it was like a sword hilt, but there was no sword guard. The sword guard was a cage-like object made of 6 orange-gold curved metals, and in this small cage, there was a silver-red bead. The bead was emitting a faint light, and a great pressure was being emitted from it, causing everyone's expressions to stagnate. At the bottom of the cage, there was an irregular cross-shaped spike, and the spike was constantly tapering from the top to the bottom. At a rough glance, this thing looked like a knight's spear, except that this spear was a little smaller. However, upon closer inspection, this thing looked like an awl. What kind of expression is that? Yin Nuashing rolled her eyes and turned the golden red all around in her palm. She grabbed the tip, muttered to herself for a while, and said, This thing needs to be used by someone. When it's used, it can't be moved. As for the range, it won't be a problem to cover the entire holy kingdom. Thinking of this, Yin Nuashing suddenly shouted in her soul, That big guy didn't enter the city, right? Did he enter? If he did, throw him out for me. I'm going to go big for defense. For defense. It wouldn't be a problem to bring in all 6 strongholds, but this thing can't be entered or left. Nonsense, I can control how you go in and out, but I can't control how that big guy goes in and out. Hurry up and throw him out. Don't look at me like that, okay? Yin Nuashing was about to cry when she saw that everyone was full of doubts. She wasn't the one who created it. It needs a person to be the energy core. Don't worry, at most, the energy will be drained. This is the limit, and there's no need to worry about the energy being drained too fast. It can hold up a barrier for 2 hours, which means that after 2 hours, the energy of the person who becomes the energy core will be drained, and they just need to recover. So now, who will be the core? I'll do it. As soon as Yin Nuoxing's voice fell, everyone began to think about the strength of their own battle power in the team. Before they could think of anything, they heard a voice. Everyone quickly turned their heads and saw Qin Yin, dressed in a black dress and long black hair, walking out from Yin Nuoxing's side. She was naturally the one who spoke just now. My battle power is slightly lower. You are both stronger than me, Qin Yin said softly, directly stuffing back the words that everyone wanted to say. Yin Nuoxing pondered for a while and nodded heavily. She pressed her hands on Qin Yin's shoulders and said, "You are a brave girl." Everyone was stunned. Qin Yin was also stunned for a moment. However, before she could react to what he meant, Yin Nuoxing hugged her tightly in his arms, causing her to let out a small cry of surprise. Her face instantly turned red. Little Moon, who was standing at the side, also blushed. She pulled Yu Er's face to the side so that she wouldn't peek, while she herself stared with her eyes wide open. Now isn't the time. Yuanshi staggered and almost fell down. He was halfway through his words, but he didn't continue. After he pulled Qin Yin into his arms without any distractions, Yin Nuoxing was slightly stunned that the person in his arms didn't struggle. However, he couldn't care too much at this time. Her right hand held the awl tightly, and she spat out obscure words that sounded like roars and roars. Only one person at the scene could understand what she was saying. Even if Yuan Shi and the others couldn't understand, they could guess what she was saying. That was the language of the mythological era. Yin Nuoxing's chanting became faster and faster, and the red light emitted by the red pearl and all became more and more dazzling. After a moment, Yin Nuoxing's high-pitched chanting stopped abruptly, and a soft shout echoed throughout the entire city wall. "Bloom! Eternal barrier!" Following the soft shout, Yin Nuoxing gritted her teeth and fiercely stabbed the awl into Qin Yin's back. The loud and clear sound of something hitting the ground fell into everyone's ears. They hurriedly turned around and saw this shocking scene. Qin Yin furrowed her brows in pain, and her lily-white hands gripped tightly onto Yin Nuoxing's arm. After a moment, she was stunned. Half of the awl had already pierced into her flesh, but there was only a faint, weak pain, like that of a needle. Furthermore, no one saw the scene of blood spurting out. The awl opened up a blue light hole on Qin Yin's back and slowly sank into it. A blood-red light flashed through the blue light hole, and after a moment, it closed up. After the blue light hole closed up, a blood-red light faintly bloomed from Qin Yin's body. She nervously grasped Yin Nuoxing's arm, and the red light turned into lines that gushed out of her body. After a while, the dense red lines wrapped around her whole body until she was wrapped in a cocoon of light. Only then did Yin Nuoxing pull herself out. Then the cocoon of light suddenly rushed into the sky. The red light contracted slightly for a moment, and then suddenly bloomed. The blood-red light spread across the entire Livian world at a speed far faster than light. In the sky above the center of the entire Holy Kingdom, a faint blood-red light suddenly appeared. After appearing, it quickly became solid and then quickly spread in all directions. In just a second, it appeared above the 6 fortresses. When the blood-red barrier appeared in the sky, everyone was stunned. Yao Hua and the others knew what was going on. They worked together and used all their strength to blast the king-level void beast out of the stronghold. They shouted, "Quickly enter the stronghold." Before his voice fell, everyone, who had just been reminded, had already rushed into the fortress. Then, the blood-red canopy fell from the sky and formed a complete sphere, enveloping the entire Holy Kingdom. Bang! 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 After the blood-red canopy formed, the king-level void beast also rushed over immediately, raising its huge palm and chain to smash the canopy. However, The huge force that smashed the canopy of light to the verge of collapse did not cause the slightest ripple of energy to appear on the blood-red canopy. Smash, smash all you want. If you can break the concept of eternity, it's my loss. Yin Nuashing sat on the ground. Casting the eternal barrier consumed a lot of his power, but after that, it was all up to Qin Yin to maintain the barrier. Those who can't understand eternity, even if their power has reached the level of the natural order, will not be able to break the barrier so easily. Now, we have an absolutely stable 2 hours, and we can use it to rest. After 2 hours, we will have to fight it to the death. Of course, it's not a problem to fight it to the death now. Apart from the Void Beast, everyone else can enter and leave. This sentence was directly transmitted to everyone's soul, and they were all stunned. Ivan and the others wiped the sweat on their foreheads and sighed. 2 hours is still a time, and it'll be dawn by then. Dawn? And then? Yin Nuashing was a little stunned. Was daybreak still their weakness? Then we can at least see the sun tomorrow, Ivan said with a smile. Everyone, Nightmare was exasperated. That's today's sun. F*CKU. Yin Nuashing couldn't take it anymore. He jumped up and slapped Nightmare to the ground. Don't talk about this. Damn it, Qin Girl is hanging up there. 2 hours. Hurry up, I'm gonna rest. You guys think of something. If it doesn't work, I'll slash it with my sword as usual. Can you slash it? Yuanshi was a little worried. This big guy is much stronger than all the void beasts we've encountered before. The energy reaction on its body is frightening. Also, I don't think this can last for 2 hours, Ling said faintly. Everyone was shocked and quickly turned their gazes away. The king-level void beast suddenly stopped its attacks after failing to break through the blood-red barrier for a long time. Then it slowly retreated. This action made everyone's heart skip a beat. This king-level void beast knew how to retreat? Did it have some sort of spiritual intelligence? Roar. A moment later, the void beast roared at the sky. The loud sound shook the heavens and the earth, and it caused waves of echoes in the surrounding mountains. Then, a weak wave spread out, and the king-level void beast's body slowly shrank. Clatter. The sound of chains being pulled could be heard. Everyone watched as the void beast shrank at a speed visible to the naked eye. The black fog on its body also turned from thin to very solid, surging out like a black tide. Its body shrank from the size of a mountain to the size of a junior general within a minute. The clattering black chains were also revealed in front of everyone. And it didn't stop. The chains were also slowly shrinking as its body shrank. Something's not right. Yin Nuashing's expression changed slightly. He suddenly pulled out the sun god bow and pulled it with 2 fingers. Energy surged out and a slender crystal arrow suddenly formed. Then he released it fiercely. The crystal arrow carried an unparalleled amount of energy and rushed out in all directions. In the blink of an eye, it rushed in front of the shrunken void beast and suddenly exploded. An energy storm thousands of feet in size swept out, causing the surrounding mountains to collapse. The terrifying energy shock wave slammed into the blood-red barrier, but it only caused slight ripples. There was no real damage. The black fog was torn apart by the shock wave. At the center of the explosion, a 4 to 5 meter tall figure was emitting billowing black fog. Yin Nuashing's arrow could easily kill half a general-level void beast, but it was completely unharmed. No, it's not shrinking, it's... Ling's eyes widened, and a golden light surged out his eyes. He could see that from a moment the gigantic body had shrunk to its current state. All the energy was rapidly gathering towards the figure that had been chained to the abdomen of the king-level warrior. Quick attack! Quick! Ling suddenly shouted, causing everyone to quiver. They couldn't care less about what was happening. They gritted their teeth and shouted angrily in unison. The energy in their hands was thrown out in all directions as if it was free. Rumble, bang, bang, bang. Hundreds and thousands of condensed energies suddenly erupted not far away, sweeping up terrifying energy shockwaves that shook the mountain range until it collapsed. Even more energy ripples erupted, shaking the mountain range and the earth into nothingness. Within the energy storm, a series of sizzling sounds could be heard. Countless black mists circled around, canceling out those energies. Boom, boom, boom. The black fog kept changing its shape, turning into solid fists and palms. They met the energy that was rushing towards them. In an instant, the heavens and the earth rumbled and shook from the terrifying impact. Huge fissures as deep as the abyss appeared on the ground. By the time all the storms had dissipated, the black fog had also been completely annihilated. However, the black fog had also blocked all the powerful attacks. The surrounding ground had sunk by more than 10 meters like a cliff. A young man's figure appeared at the original position of the king-level void beast. He stood in the air, his long black hair swaying messily in the wind. His clothes fluttered, and black fog flowed on his body like a close-fitting armor. There's a person chained in the abdomen of the king-level void beast. Ling's voice was grave. That person, no matter what he was before, has been completely corroded by the pure power of the void beast. His body, mind, and soul have all been corroded. The only thing left is an empty shell, used to carry the king-level power. I just saw it. All the energy has flowed into that body. That huge body has shrunk to the size of a normal person. The degree of condensed energy. Ling gritted his teeth. His voice leaked out from between his teeth. It's at least 10 times more powerful. Idiot number 1. Hurry up and strengthen your barrier. Little Qin. Without needing his reminder, Yun Nuoxing shouted at Qin Yan. The latter was now the carrier of the entire barrier. Strengthening the eternal barrier's strength was just a matter of consciousness. The moment they finished speaking, a light so dense that it was almost purple gushed out of the cocoon that Qin Yan had turned into. The entire eternal barrier also turned pale purple at this moment. Then, the king-level void beast that had shrunk to the size of a human, or rather, the person below, also launched an attack at this moment. Without the slightest bit of skill, he simply threw a punch out of thin air. Dong! The sound of a heavy collision rang out. That punch seemed to have the strength of 1,000 caddies. Even a massive body of the eternal barrier was unable to cause any ripples to appear on it. But now, with just a single punch, it caused ripples to appear on the fortified purple barrier. Even space itself was trembling. F*CK. This power is definitely enough to shake the laws. Yin Nuoxing stared in shock at the ripples on the pale purple barrier. She sucked in a cold breath and pulled out the Netherworld Ruins sword. She shouted, "Go! F*CK him up!" As soon as Yin Nuoxing finished speaking, she turned into a black shadow and dashed out. Her speed and strength were all raised to the limit. The Netherworld Ruins sword in her hand was like a giant tablet. That speed and full force slammed directly on the figure of the young man. The power that was enough to tear the king-level void beast apart only sent the young man flying a few meters away like a rubber ball. Huh! Bang bang! Boom! Boom! As the figure retreated a few meters, dozens and hundreds of bursts of energy behind, Yin Nuoxing suddenly whizzed past Yin Nuoxing like a group of angry dragons leaving their nest. Finally, they landed heavily on the body of the young man. Perhaps only Yin Nuoxing and a few others could withstand such a terrifying power. The young man, whose body was possessed by the void beast, merely flicked his sleeves lightly and the bursts of energy were all shattered. While Yin Nuoxing and the others were attacking, the other 5 strongholds also focused all their firepower on the human-sized void beast at the same time. The fierce battle broke out again after less than a day. The sky was also slowly turning bright. This dawn was exceptionally chaotic. Chapter 876. Boom! Clang! 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 Chi! In the air outside the Bloodwing Fortress, Yin Nuoxing's body was like a shadow that constantly appeared and disappeared. Both his hands gripped the huge dark ruin sword tightly. Violent star energy and elemental energy swirled around his body as he clashed with the dark ruin sword at lightning speed. Every strike contained a power that could tear the heavens and earth apart. However, the dark ruin sword easily dispelled all of his attacks. Even as he dispelled Yin Nuoxing's attacks, he even used the dark ruin sword to deflect the power back to Yin Nuoxing. In the sky, the violent forces collided with each other, causing cracks to appear in the space around them. The youth's disheveled hair covered a pair of scarlet eyes. Yin Nuoxing's heart skipped a beat when he occasionally met his gaze. Such a violent aura was a little too violent. The unstable elements in the energy were too chaotic. Yin Nuoxing, who was well-versed in energy, could clearly feel the chaotic aura coming from his opponent. The degree of chaos was too unbelievable. It was so chaotic that even maintaining one's own existence was a problem. Logically speaking, there shouldn't be such an unstable energy in the world. For numbers to have meaning, they couldn't all be zeros. For a flame to burn, there had to be something for it to burn. For a person to live, there had to be something to maintain the complete structure of the human body. Even if he was soaked in an excessive amount of life force and only had his head left, Yin Nuoxing would still be able to pretend that he was still alive. In order to move one's body, one had to have consciousness. A puppet's consciousness was also consciousness. Even if a puppet was an inanimate object and a simple-minded idiot, it still had instinctive consciousness. However, the person he was facing, the dark ruin sword, had no order at all. A string of numbers that were all zeros. Flames that ignited out of nowhere without any support. In other words, this kind of energy was self-contradictory and self-destructive. It was even denying its own existence. This kind of energy that had no order and was completely chaotic was even more incomprehensible than the pure void energy. The latter was only zero and nothing existed. However, the former was completely chaotic, including itself. Dark elementals shouldn't have such chaotic powers. It's strange, even if it's a mutated dark elemental. I must have forgotten something important. Zero stood on the city wall with a frown on his face. He had used up all of his strength in the previous wave of attacks. Right now, he could only sit on the city wall and recover his strength. Clang! After a fierce confrontation, Yin Nuoxing and the King General humanoid creature both retreated 100 meters. At this moment, it should be called a puppet, a powerful puppet. Yin Nuoxing shook her numb left hand and gritted her teeth. Her arm was crippled, and she couldn't feel it all. The power of rule. Every attack contains the power of rule. You seal my left hand on the level of rule? Yin Nuoxing took over the nether void sword with his right hand and let out a gloomy laugh. His eyes darted around, and no one knew what he was thinking. Eat my palm. Boom. Behind the puppet, Yuan Shi, Nightmare, Ivan, and the others suddenly appeared. Their fists and palms were wrapped in unparalleled power, and a layer of holy energy surged out. Finally, they slammed into the back of the puppet, which was half a beat slower. The monstrous power was ferocious and unparalleled, and it directly created a huge energy storm in the air. However, Yuan Shi and the others who attacked still had serious expressions on their faces. Their powers seemed to have caused a huge commotion, but it was all blocked by the puppet's physical body. In the storm, a dark fist suddenly came crashing down. Get out of the way! Yin Nuoxing roared angrily. Her figure flashed, and she appeared in front of Yuan Shi and the others. She slapped out with her palm, and a gust of wind blew them away. Then, she grabbed the nether void sword that was floating beside her and slashed at the puppet. Clang! The two terrifying energies collided like the earth and the moon, causing the entire sky to tremble. Yin Nuoxing's hand trembled, and a huge force surged through the nether void sword. She was sent flying by the punch. The aftermath of the two energies spread to Yuan Shi and the others, directly shattering their defenses. They grunted as they were sent flying. In the end, they were all caught by the fastest spirit god of the spirit clan, Xianya. Wah, that hurts. When everyone was thrown back to the city wall by Xianya, only Yin Nuoxing was left in the sky, stubbornly resisting against the puppet. Nightmare rubbed her sore shoulder and couldn't help but grin. She had been injured by her own power from that punch. The battle in the sky was like a fireworks show. Most of it was the scene of Yun Nuoxing's energy exploding. That king-level puppet, other than giving everyone a very powerful force that was equivalent to the power of laws, and it also had a weak spiritual intelligence, there was nothing special about it. From the beginning to the end, it hadn't used a single skill, but its fighting skills were very shocking to the onlookers. Every punch and kick had the style of a martial artist who had practiced martial arts for many years. Moreover, this kind of skill was engraved in the puppet's bones, and it was subconsciously executed. Practice makes perfect. Hearing everyone's words, Zero nodded in agreement. However, idiot number one's skills can't be broken so easily. The puppet's skills are engraved in its bones, and our skills are engraved in its soul. Even subconscious movements are enough. The only difference is that the power that the puppet uses every time is at the level of the power of laws. Can't little star, and you use the power of laws at the level of heavenly gods. Yuan-Shi couldn't help but ask in their souls. I've said before that our power isn't used for fighting. You still want to use a support-type power of laws to clash with a combat-type power of laws. Zero rolled its eyes. How can the five elements realm withstand the power of laws at the level of heavenly gods? That time, we only used a little bit of the power to shift the stars, a very little bit, about 1/trillionth of the power. It was only used for regulation, but it already caused slight damage to that world. If it was used against an enemy, I'm afraid that it would directly penetrate the rules of the five elements realm. Therefore, we didn't reserve any power of laws for combat. Who would have thought that we would have to fight to find a fragment? And to such an extent, Yuan-Shi was instantly speechless. Woo 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 woo. Beside them, the unconscious Yuer was lying in Little Moon's arms, groaning in pain. Yuan-Shi glanced at them and couldn't help but sigh. Although they were all top-notch fighters, it had been half an hour since the start of the battle. Yuer had charged too crazily and was carelessly hit by the King General. She instantly lost her ability to fight. It was the same for the others. At this moment, Ozhi was treating them. Yuan-Shi, Nightmare, and Chu Yingxian, who were stronger, had charged a few times. However, looking at the effect, it seemed that they were causing trouble for Yun Nuoxing every time. Every time they were forced to retreat, they would be pushed away by Yun Nuoxing. If they had a direct confrontation with the King General, they would probably end up like Yuer. However, if this continued, Yun Nuoxing's power would also be exhausted. Boom! Just as they thought of this, the wall next to Yuan-Shi and the others suddenly exploded, giving everyone a fright. Zero waved her hand to wipe away the smoke and dust, revealing the broken wall inside. Yun Nuoxing was half lying and half embedded in the wall. Her pretty face was slightly distorted from the pain. Brother, Little Moon was a little nervous. After entrusting Yuer to Ozhi, she quickly ran over to Yun Nuoxing and pulled her out of the wall. When she saw the golden-red blood flowing down Yun Nuoxing's face, she hurriedly wiped it off with her sleeves. Bang! 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 The light purple eternal barrier shook, and huge ripples continuously appeared. After losing its target, Yun Nuoxing, the kingdom-level puppet, rushed over to smash the barrier again. This time, it used all its strength to smash the barrier. This barrier, which stood on the level of the natural laws and had the attribute of eternal, was soon on the verge of collapsing under the puppet's violent attacks. Little Purple Soul hugged Yun Nuoxing's thigh. Her purplish-gold eyes shone brightly in the morning sun. The purplish-gold color slightly illuminated a small area nearby. Zero noticed this and could not help but be startled. He looked at the little girl deeply, and his mind churned slightly. Yun Nuoxing panted for a while and slowly opened her eyes. She swallowed a mouthful of blood. Her colorful eyes burned with amazing energy. With a puff, 6 colorful wings spread out from her back. The energy in this area suddenly became chaotic. Hey, idiot number one, I have an idea. Zero spoke up in time to stop Yun Nuoxing, who had activated her second form and was about to rush forward. Everyone turned to look at him. What idea? It's a very bad idea. Maybe you can get rid of those 6 King General level monsters and blow up the entire Livian planet. But with the Eternal Barrier, the Holy Kingdom shouldn't be a problem. Zero laughed. Say it. Yin Nuashin glanced at him. Her blood was boiling. In her battle mode, she gave people a great sense of pressure, especially her disdainful gaze. It was even more stressful. Zero nodded and said, "Remember that time in the Ghost Forest when I used that kind of condensed energy at the end?" Everyone was stunned. Yin Nuashing frowned and nodded. "I think you can condense it. With the help of your origin formation, it should be enough to condense it to the size of a planet." As soon as she said that, the temperature in the air dropped to freezing point. Little Purple Soul sneezed from the cold and looked at Yin Nuashing and the others strangely. She even tugged at Zero's pants with her little hand. "You want to blow up this planet, don't you?" Yin Nuashing said, gritting her teeth. Everyone was speechless. What kind of bad idea was that? Zero shook his head helplessly and looked at Ivan. "You should be able to protect the mortals in space. This is the worst idea I can come up with. Mobilizing 6 kingdom-level puppets at once. I heard you guys say that this is unprecedented. I think it's either we're all done for or we'll just die together. Even if we can't stop them, we'll leave a place for the Void Beast to nurture. Why don't we just take everyone to the second battlefront and destroy this place?" It's just a suggestion. If you think it won't work, then forget it. We'll think of something else. Maybe they'll retreat after a while. After saying that, Zero hugged his head and squatted in a corner. "If you want to beat them up, don't hit their faces." After saying that, Ivan and the others' eyes flickered. Yin Nuashing hesitated for a moment. She didn't rush out and fight the kingdom-level puppet to the death. She reached out and strengthened the Eternal Rampart. The huge ripples caused by the kingdom-level puppet's attack suddenly weakened a lot. This was a very difficult decision to make, even though everyone knew the situation. 6 kingdom-level puppets. If it weren't for the Eternal Rampart, the 6 fortresses would have already fallen. The Bloodwing Fortress had the strongest defense. This was mainly because there were too many powerful combatants in the fortress. However, even Yin Nuashing and the others had a hard time dealing with the kingdom-level puppet. The puppet's strange and chaotic power countered almost all powers. Even Little Star, who was incomparably powerful in everyone's eyes, had been defeated by it. Zero had even used up all of his power in one round of Berserk, but he still hadn't been able to stop the kingdom-level puppet from transforming. In such a situation, falling into enemy hands was the only possible outcome. The only difference was that everyone could still watch the Eternal Rampart slowly collapse under the siege of the 6 kingdom-level puppets. Even though most of the people in the Bloodwing Fortress had already evacuated, where could they escape to? Once the fortress's entrance was breached, millions of void beasts would be able to flood in. No matter how far they escaped, they would only be able to struggle at death's door. Furthermore, according to Ivan, the powerful beings in the Livian world had the power to cross planets. However, those who tried to leave the Livian world would be attacked by the void beasts. Furthermore, a single person would have to make preparations before leaving. With such a large group of people, who knew how long it would take to prepare, the kingdom-level puppets were still relentlessly smashing the barrier. However, with Yin Nuashing's active defense, the barrier had become much stronger. The puppets could no longer easily shake the barrier. Ivan raised his head, looked behind the Bloodwing Fortress, and sighed deeply. He was very clear about this situation. After fighting against the Void Beast for tens of millions of years, every time a kingdom-level puppet appeared, it would lead to the fall of the fortress. It had been like this for tens of millions of years. The kingdom-level puppets rarely appeared, but when they did, they were definitely a huge force that could destroy cities and fortresses. What they had encountered was only a huge body. Even the 5 great spiritual gods had not been able to destroy it. At most, they had been forced to the state they saw today. Ivan gritted his teeth fiercely and thought about it again and again. In the end, he still could not think of a good way to get through this difficult situation. He scratched his head in distress. After a long while, he took a deep breath. "Cynthia, inform everyone. Give up on Livley. We will collectively support the Holy Kingdom and move to gray. After saying this, the golden light on Ivan's body dimmed a little. Liv lay, and all the planets in this starry sky were his territory, the world under his jurisdiction. All the intelligent creatures in it were his children. Now he had to give the order to blow up an entire planet. His heart felt as uncomfortable as if it was blocked. It will get better. This is just a strategic retreat. Everything that has been lost will be taken back. Nightmare patted him on the shoulder and said in a deep voice, "Ah." Ivan raised his head in astonishment. Seeing everyone's solemn expressions, he could not help but say, "Ah, I mean, after blowing up this planet, we will have to send a report to the heavenly court in the spiritual realm later. Oh, we have to write a self-reflection after acting first. Maybe we will be grounded and fined. Maybe it will even affect our performance for the next 1,000 years." Everyone was stunned. "So you won't be sad about blowing up this planet at all? If it's blown up, then so be it. You said it was a strategic retreat. After the war, I can still rebuild it. But if we blow it up rashly, we will be criticized and educated by the higher-ups." Ivan waved his hand and sighed. Zero suddenly felt that the guilt was so weak that it was almost gone. The existence of the Void Beast has a great impact on our divine authority. It would be best if you can blow it up completely. Ivan sighed softly and glanced at Yin Nuashing. He nodded and said to Osir and the others. Then he turned and walked to the side. "I will go and inform the children. You can go ahead and prepare. Leave the rest to us." Zero nodded and looked at Yin Nuashing. "You should be fine, right? There is a problem, but it will be fine in 3 to 5 minutes. You guys hold the fort." Yin Nuashing was expressionless. Everyone was stunned again. If there was a problem, why would it take 5 minutes? Although they had doubts in their minds, they did not ask. Yin Nuashing was already preparing to take action. "Hey, wait. Take this child with you. She should be able to help you." Zero quickly picked up little purple soul, who had retreated obediently to the side, and held her in front of Yin Nuashing. Little purple soul blinked her big eyes in confusion. Although she did not know what she could do, she cheered excitedly when she heard that she could be of help to her brother. Then, she clung to Yin Nuashing like an octopus and kept rubbing her little head against Yin Nuashing. Yin Nuashing looked at Zero expressionlessly. When she saw the latter smiling and not saying anything, she could only roll her eyes helplessly and nod. Then, she stretched out the nether void sword and made a gesture with her left hand. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. TSK. There was a flash of cold light, and golden and red blood gushed out. Everyone grimaced in pain. Even Chu Yingjian could not stand it. "Damn it, he's bleeding without saying anything. Is there something wrong with this guy?" Before she could finish her sentence, Yin Nuashing slashed her right hand again. Everyone gasped in unison. Those who did not know better would think that she was going to commit suicide. Even the top experts in this world would not be able to withstand such a large amount of blood. The amount of blood that was lost would soon accumulate into a pool on the city wall. Don't blink. This is a rare moment when the divine body of a receptive spirit is unleashing its full power. Zero smiled and quietly took a step back. Seeing her take a step back, everyone looked at each other and took a step back as well. They quickly stabilized the barrier. Yin Nuashing stretched out her hands and slanted upwards. The golden and red blood flowed to the ground like 2 streams of water. It condensed 3 feet around Yin Nuashing's feet. The golden and red blood seemed to have a mind of its own as it slowly drew a golden array about 3 feet in size. The atmosphere in the surroundings suddenly changed. A gust of wind blew between heaven and earth. Everyone sensed that something had changed between heaven and earth. It was as if the energy of heaven and earth had a mind of its own. It was as if the energy of heaven and earth had suddenly surged. Or rather, it was as if the energy of heaven and earth had a mind of its own. It was as if it was being observed from all directions. That kind of consciousness covered every inch of heaven and earth, and it was quickly spreading out. Everyone was shocked. It felt as if everything in the world had suddenly gained a mind of its own. The air, the mountains, the earth, the space, and time all seemed to have come alive. It was a very difficult thing to describe. In their perception, it felt as if heaven and earth were awakening. Yun Nuoxing's figure slowly floated up into the air. Her colorful eyes shone with an indelible light. The golden and red array slowly rotated under her feet. Every time it rotated half a circle, an invisible ripple would spread between heaven and earth. It quickly spread to every corner of Lively City. It's coming, it's coming. Guys, control your own energy. Don't say I didn't warn you if it's going to explode. Zero pressed down on his long hair, which had been messed up by the wind, and grinned. When everyone heard this, they did their best to stabilize their own energy while transferring energy to the eternal barrier. At the same time, they also transmitted their voices to the others. They weren't the only ones here. His body floated to a certain height, and Yin Nuoxing stopped. The blood that fell from his hands was all injected into the golden-red magic array under his feet, and it was still spreading to the space beside him. Originally, he should be getting weaker and weaker, but his eyes seemed to be burning, and the divine patterns on his body also became incomparably bright at this moment, and even penetrated the obstruction of his clothes. Those light patterns were directly seen by the eyes of the crowd. The cycle of the 4 seasons. The cycle of 1,000 cycles. Yin Nuoxing raised her head and slowly murmured, I, in my name, turn this body into heaven and earth. Heaven and earth are this body. This body is the carrier of the entire world, divine body of reception, binding release. Bang! As the sound of his voice faded, Yin Nuoxing's body glowed with a dazzling light. All the divine inscriptions on his body started to grow crazily. They extended from his body to the space, to the time, to the void. They were like thorns that grew explosively. Those incomparably resplendent and mysterious divine inscriptions blotted out the sky and covered the earth. Rings of golden ripples spread out like ripples of water, illuminating the entire space in an orange-gold color. When the golden ripples swept past, everyone felt that the energy in their bodies was suddenly out of control. However, with Zero's warning, they quickly suppressed the energy in their bodies. Fortunately, the golden ripples weren't targeted at them, but at the entire world, including time and space. Naturally, it also included the king-class warriors who were crazily smashing the barrier with their fists. The golden ripples spread very quickly. When the familiar ripples appeared in the other 5 strongholds, everyone was stunned. Yao Hua and the others instantly turned pale, while Ziye's pretty face darkened. She viciously smashed her fist on the city wall. That idiot. He's messing around again. The moment Ziye's voice fell, a huge multicolored array suddenly appeared in the sky, enveloping the entire Holy Kingdom. In the center of the array, golden and multicolored divine runes spread from below like a tree, and finally touched the array in the sky. In the name of divine body of reception, Yin Nuoxing, the power of this world is under my control. The majestic voice spread throughout the entire Livian world. It even spread to the surrounding starry sky with incomprehensible nomological power, affecting several nearby planets. Countless people looked up in astonishment. In a trance, they seemed to see a golden and colorful divine rune tree standing between heaven and earth. The moment the voice fell, heaven and earth suddenly trembled. The power of heaven and earth, elemental power, spatial power, time power, nomological power, star power, and even the power of the primordial realm, as well as all the energy of the Livian world, and even the power of the void beasts, all gathered toward the huge array at this moment, as if they were being pulled. Chapter 877. When an energy storm erupted, if no one interfered and there was no resistance, the energy storm would engulf everything it could reach. Finally, it would completely engulf the energy between heaven and earth into this terrifying storm. This was an ideal situation, but it was almost impossible to achieve. When the energy storm reached a certain size, Most of the energy that guided the storm in the center would be first annihilated by the energy that was engulfed in, and finally disappear completely. And if that guiding force didn't disappear, theoretically speaking, it would reach a level where it would continue to spread until the entire world was engulfed, just like what was happening on Livian right now. An extremely powerful suction force erupted from the Bloodwing Fortress and spread across the entire Livian planet. It even spread to the outer star fields. An energy storm that could engulf the entire Livian planet was slowly brewing amidst this energy imbalance. If someone stood in the starry sky and looked down, they would be able to see that all the energy had condensed into a tangible river of energy. From the boundless starry sky to the Livian planet and the surrounding planets, countless amounts of energy were condensing in the large lavender region of the Livian planet. At first, it was just an inconspicuous light spot, but that light spot was the center of all the energy. Not only was it absorbing energy, but the surrounding energy pressure was also compressing the energy crazily. A 300-meter-long river of energy could be reduced to the width of a finger by the time it flowed into the light spot. The energy was compressed to such a degree that it was almost crystallized, and the 300-meter-long river of energy was just a trickle. Looking down from the starry sky, other than the lavender region of Livian planet, the rest of the planet was covered in dark clouds. At this moment, the dark clouds were surging with various colored rivers of energy that were thousands of meters long. Those were the energies of Livian planet itself, and they were mixed with the black energy of the void beasts. A 1,000,000-meter-long starlight pillar descended from the starry sky, and it was many times larger than Livian planet. When all the energies were compressed together, it's really 3 minutes. In the Bloodwing Fort, the whistling wind was so strong that it could blow people away. Those who were still guarding the Bloodwing Fort were all warriors among warriors, elites among elites. They could be called heroes. Even they couldn't stand stably on the ground at this moment. The wind brought up by the energy storm was so strong that it almost sucked them into the sky. Ivan and the others tried their best to lower their bodies and put up a barrier to block the wind, but it wasn't very effective. They were all half squatting on the ground, holding their wildly dancing hair and looking up at the sky. The brilliant starlight pillar, which was so dense that it looked like a black starfield, suddenly fell from the sky. The golden and colorful divine pattern tree was dyed with a part of the brilliant purple gold color. That was the power of Little Purple Soul. As Zero said, when Yin Oshing fully released the power of the divine body, his soul and mind almost collapsed just by maintaining it. The power of Little Purple Soul helped him. The divine pattern tree spread out tens of thousands of feet. It was like a huge golden tree that supported the heavens and the earth. In the center of the huge tree, below the layers of golden runes, was Yun Nuo planet, which had completely released itself, and the small purple soul that was wrapped in it. Look, it's so bright. Only Zero could still be excited. Hanging above everyone's heads was a huge reddish-black energy ball. Huge chains appeared on the surface of the energy ball, and in the center was a deep purple-black area. The violent energy emitted from the energy ball made everyone's heart jump, especially the energy ball. It expanded from the size of a small fist to thousands of miles in diameter in just 3 minutes, and it was still madly spinning and swallowing all the energy. Almost everyone was so scared that they couldn't speak. The monstrous power made everyone, including Ivan, Yuan Shi, and the others, breathless. Outside the eternal barrier, the king-level void beast still didn't react. It was as if the chaotic energy didn't exist, and it was still bombarding the barrier with punches. The scale of the energy storm that engulfed the entire Livian planet was unimaginably large. Just the power of the energy storm alone was enough to make the planet collapse. The ground sank, and the ocean surged. Huge abyssal cracks appeared on the ground, and black seawater poured into the scorching magma, making explosive sounds. The deepest crack even split the magma layer, revealing the scorching core below. The energy density of Livian and the stars is dropping rapidly. No, it's almost bottoming out. The energy of Livian itself is being crazily sucked away. If this continues, everything except the eternal barrier will be sucked away, Joe said to Ivan with a grave expression, pressing down his messy blonde hair. I can feel it. Old Master, remember to open up your spirit realm domain later so that the children won't be restricted in space. However, I'm worried that when the energy erupts... Ifan's expression was serious as cold sweat flowed down his face. Qian, remember to write a report for me. Oh, that's not right. We have to survive first, don't we? The extremely handsome man almost shrank his head into his chest. When he heard that, he was so shocked that he jumped up and was almost blown away by the wind. Hearing that, Ivan rolled his eyes and pointed at Zero with his chin. Look at how calm they are. Qian, no, look at them. Most of them aren't that calm. Joe was speechless. Except for Zero, the others weren't that calm. Yuan Shi and the others' faces couldn't be paler. They were so scared that they almost suffocated. They knew that Yin Nuashing would cause a huge commotion, but they didn't expect it to be this big. This kind of energy was enough to destroy the king-level void beast, but the latter was aiming at the entire Livian planet. He wanted to blow up the entire planet, and he was still condensing his energy. But amazingly, Yin Nuashing's power was only at the half-demon level. He had never crossed the limit of the five-element realm, but the energy he was condensing was far more than that. Even novice Celestials would be so scared that their jaws would drop. The reddish-black energy ball kept rolling and expanding in the infinite energy. Gradually, it expanded from a few thousand miles to tens of thousands of miles. It was already the same size as Livian planet. Its overwhelming size could be seen clearly from this side of the planet. It was only a few thousand feet above the ground. Looking up from below, it looked like another planet was about to collide with it. It was as if one could reach out and touch it. However, it was more like a reddish-black sun. Its brilliant light dyed the sky of Livian planet red and black. Except for the lack of light, there was almost no difference. Swoosh! Zero and the others, who were looking up at the energy feast, suddenly heard the sound of wind breaking. When they turned their heads, they saw a row of people beside them. It was Yao Hua and the others who had run to the other 5 strongholds. When they saw this scene, they all fiercely sucked in a breath of cold air. Damn! I ran to the center. Did I run to the wrong place? Yao Hua was so scared that his face was covered in sweat. He almost spat out his tongue. What he saw in the other fortresses was not as exaggerated as what he saw here. Oh, the immeasurable heavenly venerate. Fellow cultivator, you took us to the wrong place. Lin Sheng was so scared that he even called out his Taoist name. Ivan, what's going on? The other Golden Spirit tribe members surrounded Ivan, who was calmly watching the show, and began to ask questions at the same time. Oh, you're back? Just in time for this amazing feast. Zero looked at everyone and nodded. He waved his hand and pointed at the divine pattern tree not far away. Open your eyes and watch. This is his most brilliant moment. It's so brilliant that it's comparable to the moment when he self-combusts. All the power of the divine body is released. It is indeed brilliant. I'm almost going blind. Nightmare lay on the ground without any elegance. He stared at the reddish-black energy ball that kept rolling and expanding. He sighed. It's about time to explode. If it doesn't, my mind will explode. It was unknown if the nightmare demon's urging had an effect, but the constantly churning energy planet suddenly stopped churning. The purplish-black region at its center pulsed like a heart. A moment later, it suddenly stopped beating and slowly collapsed toward the center. An annihilating energy was quietly born from within it. I suggest you all close your eyes, Zero said calmly. Then he covered his eyes with his hands. Everyone was shocked. Just as they were about to close their eyes, they heard a cold voice slowly descend from the sky. Star destruction. Damn, this is the enhanced version? As soon as the voice came out, Zero was frightened. She quickly shouted at the runic tree, "Don't blow up the entire solar system." However, this voice was still a bit slow. Everyone only saw that the thick pillar of starlight in the sky suddenly condensed and poured into the reddish-black energy ball like a waterfall. All the energy from the surface of the reddish-black energy ball condensed toward the center. Its volume also seemed to shrink abruptly. Then, Zero was so frightened that he almost started talking nonsense. Qinyan, remove the eternal rule defense. That will make the eternal barrier invincible for 5 minutes. That should be enough. Quick, Ivan, let's hurry up and create a new energy barrier. Oh my God, who knew that guy would create an enhanced version of the carnival? That bastard is so afraid that he won't be able to blow up this planet. He's afraid that he won't be able to blow up this solar system. Close your eyes. Get down. At least create an energy barrier to protect yourself. Without any warning, a crack appeared on the red and black sun, and an extremely brilliant flash of light suddenly exploded. Everyone's eyes seemed to be frozen on this scene. That was an energy explosion that was enough to engulf the entire planet. The reddish-black energy impact engulfed everything. Mixed with the thick power of stars, it carried an energy that could annihilate everything and swept out tens of thousands of miles, 100,000 miles, 1,000,000 miles, until 100 million miles. The range of this bright energy explosion was finally suppressed as Zero wished. Yin Nuoxing didn't completely release the energy. Instead, he trapped the energy that was enough to engulf the entire solar system in this space with a diameter of 100 million miles and completely detonated it. That level of energy impact was multiplied by countless times. The impact didn't last very long. Like an extreme flash of light, it shone back and forth in this space for 3 minutes before the energy was completely exhausted. From the condensation to the explosion, it took less than 10 minutes. Even if it was just 10 minutes, it wouldn't be a problem for Yun Nuoxing to annihilate all the Emperor gods on this planet. For this level of attack, Yun Nuoxing only played the role of guiding and compressing the energy. In fact, it was the energy that covered an unknown area that was exerting its power. However, he was the only one who had the authority to mobilize all the energy. The spiritual divine body was more suitable for borrowing all the energy from the outside world to fight against the enemy. This time, Yin Nuoxing only used this talent to the extreme and added the energy impact unique to the star technique. That was all. When everything was over, in the space where Livian planet used to be, there was only a giant floating island shrouded in a light purple energy barrier. Below the barrier was a layer of golden barrier that isolated the space environment. Everything that was blocked by the eternal barrier, including time, space, and even the void, had been destroyed more than 10 times just now. There really wasn't anything left. In the Bloodwing Fortress, most of the people had fainted from the earth-shattering destruction of the energy. A large number of people were lying on the city walls and the streets of the fortress. If one looked closely, they would find that the people on the city walls were still awake, or at least moving slightly. As for the divine pattern tree, it had disappeared when the energy explosion ended. What? Am I still alive? Yuan Shi's eyes were bright, white, as if he had been blinded. He propped himself up with difficulty and muttered weakly, "You should be alive, but this place is so white. Don't tell me I've ascended to heaven. I feel like I'm going to hell." Nightmare's trembling voice came from the side. Although he couldn't see it, Yuan Shi could already feel the guy trembling and hugging his knees as he curled up into a ball. "What are you guys talking about so calmly?" Ivan said in a trembling voice. Just now, there was an energy explosion that could destroy a planet in front of him. Well, it was the first time he saw someone who could destroy an entire planet with just energy. "God Almighty, after this battle, I'll resign and go back to write my biography. Everyone, where's your ambition?" The light purple barrier trembled a little before quietly dissipating. The golden barrier still enveloped the entire floating island. It seemed that even though they were scared out of their wits, Ivan and the others still didn't forget to use their own power to protect this place. Qin Yin removed the barrier herself, so there was still a considerable amount of energy left in her body. She didn't faint. She held the golden red awl in her hand and landed on the city wall. She only felt the energy explosion just now, but she didn't see it directly. Her eyes were still normal. When she landed on the city wall, she saw a group of people wriggling like corpses. Their bodies were twitching as if they were having convulsions. You guys. Qin Yin was very confused. There shouldn't have been any energy leakage just now, right? Don't mention it. My organs were all shaken out of place. I need to rest for a while. Nightmare said in a trembling voice. Oh, minor injury, minor injury. It should be a minor injury. Ugh. Lin Sheng's voice trembled. He had been directly exposed to the energy explosion just now, and his eyes were almost blinded. He had been watching the entire scene with his eyes wide open, so he was lucky not to go blind. As for Violet Knight and the others, they were different from ordinary people. They weren't hurt by the shockwaves. Lan Xian looked around in a panic. Where's Brother Nuashing? Kuming's gaze also quickly swept across the Bloodwing Fort. The divine pattern tree in the sky had already disappeared, and they could now see the starry sky. As far as the eye could see, there was a gigantic planet in the distance. However, she wasn't in the mood to look at such a scene. After sweeping her gaze around for a while, her delicate eyebrows slightly raised, and her delicate figure flashed and disappeared from the spot. When she reappeared, there were two figures in her embrace, one big and one small. The big one was naturally Yun Nuashing, and the small one was Little Purple Soul. The latter was still like an octopus lying on Yun Nuashing's chest, and the two of them were deeply asleep. Their colorful hair didn't turn white, and their life force and astral energy didn't deplete much. In that state, Yun Nuashing's body had turned into energy. Naturally, she wouldn't let her energy run out. He and Little Purple Soul had only used up their soul energy and fainted. At this moment, he was lying in Ming's arms with his eyes closed. He was as quiet as a normal person. No one would have thought that he was the one who caused the explosion. TSK, I want to beat this guy up whenever I see him. Violet Knight gritted her teeth as she looked at the sleeping Yun Nuashing. Her voice leaked out from between her teeth. It's better to beat him up to vent my anger. Seeing that Violet Knight wanted to beat Yun Nuashing up, Ming hurriedly retreated and wrapped her wings around Yun Nuashing. Sister Violet Knight, forget it. Big Brother also had no choice. Violet Knight rolled her eyes and sighed. Fine. You can protect him. Xian, go back to sleep. Seeing Violet Knight rush into Yun Nuashing's soul, Ming felt a little helpless. Lan Xian, and Kai Xia smiled helplessly at her and waved their hands to return to the former soul. Little White stretched lazily at the side and followed. Sister Yishi, aren't you going back? Ming looked at the little girl with long red hair and asked. Yishi sighed and shook her head. I'll wait until my stupid brother wakes up. Violet Knight is recovering his soul. After all, she's still soft-hearted. Ivan, what do you plan to do now? Zero stood up in the dark and blinked his eyes. He realized that his vision was still white and he was about to go blind. He obediently sat down. Now, Ivan scratched his head and sighed. Let's wait until my eyes recover. Oh, I'm blind. Oh God, this is considered a work injury. Work injury. Qian, help me note it down. Remember to mention it in the report. Work injury. Everyone was speechless. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.